Hello, Counselor Pearson, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Let's see if I can find the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Counselor Pearson, we can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, April the 13th. I know that Councillor Pearson is joining with us online, so we have all of members of council present tonight. I do wish to begin by acknowledging that this meeting is taking place on the traditional lands of both the Sooke and Shianu nations. And before I look into approval of tonight's agenda, I just have a few remarks to make that as since council met the last time, unfortunately, our community has endured some very challenging times. Starting off with a tragic house fire within this neighborhood. We also parted ways with Peter Faulkner, whom you may know was well-known solicitor here in Sooke. His celebration of life was held this past Friday. It was well attended by many Sookeites near and far. Sadly, we've also learned of the sudden passing of our former base commander, Steve Wright. In addition, and I'll ask Councillor Beddoes to say a few remarks about Steve in just a moment. I also recognize there was a significant event in regards to a homicide that took place over this weekend. So I do wish to acknowledge all of the first responders who've attended to this. I'm also aware this is 911 Emergency Awareness Week, just recognizing those taking the calls when we call in that number, but also that many families, friends, neighbors, and the like have been dramatically impacted by these events. And so I just wish to let everyone know that we are thinking, you are in our thoughts, and I wish you well. And I'll turn this over to Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'd like to acknowledge that we lost a valuable member of our community on Friday. Steve Wright passed away from a tragic accident Friday morning, I believe. Just a reminder, Steve was a retired detachment commander for the RCMP. I think he came here in 2009. And I believe after the command, he liked it so much, after he retired, he stayed here. And that was our gain. He joined the Sooke Lions Club as being a pillar in the Sooke Lions Club for many, many years now. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and to Elsa, his wife. And they've asked for some privacy at the moment. And this has shaken our group. Oh, yeah, but yeah, anyways, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. He was also in the Tour de Rock. He was a rider, and as well as the support for Kids for Cancer. So he's going to be sadly missed and hard to replace. So that's it. That's tragedy I can speak to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Council, I'd now like to draw your attention to tonight's agenda. One change is 8.1. The report regarding our sister city agreement will take place at our next regular scheduled meeting. So that will be removed. The rest remains. And so I'll look for approval as the agenda to be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by St. Pierre. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. We have meeting minutes here for adoption tonight, March 23rd regular, April 1st special, April 1st, 2026 special budget revisions, it says. Move adoption by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that too carries unanimously. Item 5 is our report of the Chief Administrative Officer. The written report follows under the consent agenda. I'll just ask Ms. Gray if there's any highlights she would like to speak of at this time.
At this time, just similar to yourself, I just wanted to thank the first responders for their support over the last week here. It's been a little bit of a challenging environment, so just really appreciate the mutual aid and all the first responders that have helped the community out.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. I'll turn our attention now to item 6, which is our public question and comment period. So this is reserved for anyone in tonight's gallery that wishes to address council. This will be the one time tonight to do so. Should you have any comments to make, if you could please come forward, turn on the microphone if it's off. If you could please give us your name and then just the agenda item you wish to speak to, and then every speaker will have up to 2 minutes tonight.
William Wallace from downtown Sooke. How's it going, eh? I'm just practicing my Canadian talk. I tried this last time, but the subject wasn't on the agenda last time. It was a mistake on my part. But anyway, you said we might get answers. Given the proposed zoning regulations for Aranan, what are the maximum number of dwellings that be constructed given the current OCP and provincial directives? Number 2 question is, can you explain the major differences between the current and the proposed zoning? Number 3 question, what is the maximum number of dwellings in Sooke that right now could be built that meet our OCP zoning allowances both in and outside the sewer specified area? I know that 17 parcels were recently mentioned, and I assume secondary suites are identified as dwellings. The future is unpredictable and there is no assurance on how fast or slow developments in Sooke will happen. We saw how fast Sun River on ALR land took off, how quickly secondary suites were added, and smaller cul-de-sac developments sprung up. So those are my 3 questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll look to address those when the staff report comes forward later tonight.
I was told last time that someone would have the answers.
Okay, we're going to ask staff to do that when we have the report in front of us. Other speakers tonight?
Hi, Jeff McDonald, 2075 Harborview Road. Completely out of line here. This is about agenda item 7.5, and that there's going to be a request for reinstating a provision for number of dwelling units in the ALR. So we've had the property since 2019, and we've sort of been hovering, waiting for harmony regarding housing allotment on ALR properties and Sooke since 2019. So everybody knows they made changes in 2019, and then it took them a while. It took them 2 or 3 years to finally kind of nail down where they were going to land on housing. And for a brief period of time, Sooke was harmonized with that. So there was a provision in the bylaw that allowed for 3 dwelling units on ALR properties. But sometime in the since I guess last February or something, that got dropped. And so I've been in touch with planning about it, and they're going to be putting forth a recommendation to, as a housekeeping item, to correct this. But it's going to take till October, if it's corrected, I guess. So I'm here to advocate for the change to get it back to harmonizing with that. And then second, for some haste. It just seems absurd to me that it's going to take 8 months to correct something that was already in place and we already had harmony on. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Others, and we'll address that too. Other speakers, please.
Ellen Lewis. I'd like to address 9.1, I believe, Aranan Estates. Not necessarily just that, but the cost of all roads, parks, and boulevards become a district taxpayer liability. So I would hope that we relook at how much we ask of developers for boulevards and things like that, because it becomes a park addition and it increases our taxes. Also, I want to talk about the insurance for the homicide that it was discussed before, as now we have a homicide, and how is that cost recovered with the RCMP that we have come in from out of town. I would also ask with for the budget that we recruit volunteer firefighters instead of hiring another 2, and no more fire trucks until we deal with province and what's been happening. We all know what's been happening with our staff doing ambulance work. And speaking to that, we should have a nurse support with the RCMP, whether it's for mental health or mostly mental health and addictions. And medical staff at the Hope Center, we should be looking at that. And no more part-time staff added this year and freeze hiring. And let's half the furniture budget. And also the effective higher taxes on commercial properties. Commercial people are already struggling, and we've lost businesses because of costs. So we really have to reconsider how we, it's not just residential people that are suffering, but also commercial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers this evening?
Veronica Pemberton Villing. I live in Sooke. Is it turned on? Yes. So I wanted to thank you all for the work on the budget open house. I wanted to say it was great to speak to the people that were there. I really also appreciated it. Felt like some economies been putting in place. I felt that the handouts just seemed more workable and economical, and I appreciated that instead of lots of high expense. One of the things that I'm committed to, and many of the people that I feel I'm speaking on behalf of, is that the community association be funded as fully as possible. And one of the suggestions that came up at one of our meetings was to limit the number of staff and counselors that go to the conferences. I don't have all the acronyms before me, but I sent a letter to limit the number of people that attend the various conferences to 2 people, either one from council and one staff person, or 2 from council. And those people be specifically charged with reporting back to council, and that any savings made in that respect be given to the community association. And I realize may not be a substantial amount of savings to meet the full request, but it would meet some of the request because that's a volunteer organization. I wanted to reiterate what Mrs. Lure said, because it has become apparent to me, this has been, as I've become more involved in trying to understand the budgeting processes, and I really feel for you because so much of what comes on my assessment is not part of Sooke. So I understand that. But I also want to say it is such a concern for me that the tax base is getting more and more compressed because it is the property owners, the homeowners, and now as we build rentals, as we have more parkland, as Mrs. Lure said, more services, more everything demanded, it's more and more from this small tax base that's getting increasingly compressed and pressed upon. So I wanted to also look at how we're funding the parks and how we're funding everything with respect to we can't keep putting that pressure on as we're building rental housing and all of that. So I wanted to underscore that. And then, while I may not have a direct answer to this, I understand that many of the fire call-outs are emergency or health related, and that those calls we could get reimbursed from the provincial government if we kind of organized. I don't know if this is true. This is my understanding, and I wanted to do some more. But I think we need to do in-depth looking at every possible creative way that we can reduce. And I think you're doing a lot of that, but I wanted to underscore going forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers this evening? Is there anyone else? This is the only time on tonight's agenda.
You have a second one, though?
Sure. If you like.
I'll have a second.
Sounds good.
I don't see anyone else making their way to the microphone, so
Thank you very
There's-
much.
something new though? We don't need the same.
It's in regard to the Airnon development.
Okay,
Okay, I'll try to go quick. Airnon and other proposed major developments such as Mountain Heights may be allowed, but are not the major goal of our OCP for higher town center density or with the provincial government goals of transit hub residential growth. It is an undisputed fact that large developments outside the town core are more costly for taxpayers to maintain and service. Option 1 road frontage improvements recommended by the staff are the District of Sooke's municipality standards developed after much consultation with residents and the building community. They are best practices that will keep us out of the problems that we all see with cars, parking, and pedestrian safety at odds. We are now seeing Airnon and all other major developments happen without any assurance of federal or provincial infrastructure grants for growing needs such as roads, bridges, a new sewer treatment plant, expanded sewer lines, and probably a new police station. We all need to face that Sooke has no money and a tax problem. Kicking future infrastructure costs down the road is not a responsible fiscal strategy. We either ask developers to pay now for the infrastructure costs of their new developments or ask Sooke taxpayers to pay for it in the future. If the developer can't afford it now, it is very unlikely that taxpayers will be able to afford it in the future. I believe that Mr. Butler is a community-minded resident, and I appreciate his efforts of his 6 cement plants to sequester carbon in their cement to help address our climate emergency. It is a responsibility of the government and the politicians to ensure that best practices for pedestrian safety are followed by developers. Sooke spends a major portion of our tax dollars on professional staff for planning,
Okay, we're at
engineering,
time. Thank
forming,
you.
2 more sentences, and grant writing. They were chosen to guide and inform, and so why ignore this costly information and have council go make a deal?
Okay,
I believe
thank
that
you.
option 1 is the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, sir. You'll just need to turn the microphone back on. Yeah.
John Pym. Hello, everybody. I know I know that there's a lot of pressure on everybody, especially these days. But I really struggle to see how developing and building has in any way enhanced the lifestyle of anybody living in this community. Also, I don't understand why developers are asked to make a contribution to infrastructure when they should be made to, as part of the deal, this is how much we want. You're coming in here, you're building, you're leaving with money. It's costing the citizens more money the bigger we get. That's not the idea. Either your goal is to have a fiscally workable a community. And if that is the goal, then obviously there's some level of failure here. And the other thing is, if the goal is to ensure to some degree the style of life, the lifestyle of the community, then also that is a failure, because the more we're getting crowded, the more we have to pay for the crowdedness. I don't see a success here. I know this pressure's coming from above, but if you're working for the community, it's supposed to work up from the bottom. I know there's people that are higher up politically and that have a lot to say and put a lot of pressure on you. But I think if you'd be acting on our part, if anybody here had it in them to say no, if the province says, we'll come in and do it anyway, you say, go ahead, and we'll back you. I know we'll back you. Do it for us. Stick your finger in the dike. It's late. I know the horses are out of the barn. I know you inherited this problem. You didn't invent this problem.
Okay, thank you. We're at time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers? Please refrain from clapping. This is meant to be an environment where everyone can express views, both for and in opposition to. Hi, sir, you'll need to turn the microphone back on again, please. Thank you.
Doris Picklein. I'm a resident of Henlin, and I've had about 8-10 years of blasting and gravel shattering above me. And now this development down beside Eranan, is that gonna make just as much noise again? I don't see why I should pay my taxes. I'm getting nerve damage by the noise. It's bad for your health. It's stressful. I have mostly questions about this, like the shaded area. I don't know how to refer to it as a lot number. And beside that, the white area on the plan, above the already built Eranan estate, they're working on roads there too. And how can I see exactly the plans for these two lot areas, the shaded one? And I just wonder if anybody has done environmental assessments. It's a watershed to Ella Creek and to Kemp Lake or something like that. And I walk there, there's cougar, there's bears, there's spotted owl or horned owl or both. There's otter, there's mink. Who's taking care of that? And will there be, if there is environmental assessments for that area, who's checking up on that? Like on Ella Creek, did people ever check if they fulfilled the conditions? Anyways, those are questions for the new development. I know I should go and connect with the staff, the people here. Public trails, I mean, they make these hard to walk on roads. How many trees are they allowed to take out of there? I mean, it's all nature. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other speakers this evening?
Oh, okay, thanks. So Veronica Pemberton Billing, I live in Sooke. This is about the Throop Road Connector Project because
Okay, that's not on our agenda for this evening.
it's part of the budget though. So I'm bringing this forward as part of the budget because there's items for that in the
Okay,
budget.
go ahead.
So
please.
thank you. So it's in that, and I understand you've got a big agenda. So it's in the context of the budget is that I understand that there is a major report on the viability of that project coming forward on April the 23rd. And I'm just wondering, because I also understand that there are things in the budget about that project, and that it seems to me that that report would impact the budget, so that if the project is considered not viable, then maybe we wouldn't need those expenditures in the budget, and that could go to lowering the tax increase. So I just wanted to suggest that we could postpone the final reading of the budget till after that report and see if that affects the budget, and therefore if it affects the tax increase. And that just seemed that we could do that, and the public could engage with it, and the staff, that would be the responsible thing to do. And that the budget, I do understand the timeline of May 15th, and it seemed like that was still possible. So I wanted to put that forward. And then secondly, I know the budget encompasses everything, so I'm going to say this is about, I continue to be concerned about the climate action plan and the climate goals. And I'll tell you why. First of all, we're trying to reduce emissions as we're trying to do all this development and cut down more trees, which will only create more emissions. So the whole contradictory thing of the very nature of them concerns me. But it also concerns me that we're given the number for Sooke emissions, but it specifically does not include the amount of carbon that's absorbed by the carbon sinks within Sooke, and that's defined as the carbon thing. So
Thank you.
one last statement, I would like Sooke Council and staff to request that we be given the actual number, which is emissions minus what's absorbed by the carbon sinks.
Okay, thank you. And then Ms. Lurs, did you want to speak again?
Thank you, Ellen Lewis. I wanted to talk again to the road costs, developing roads. With what we've got in our plans, we've got these super roads with two sidewalks on either side, with boulevards, with bike lanes. The cost of building those is way beyond, and it's not Sooke. Anyway, it's like big city stuff. And so what I propose is that we look at doing one sidewalk on one side, make it wide enough that you can put a line down the middle, bikes go on it too. And yeah, and because it's not just building it, because it also drives up the cost of the housing, it's also maintaining it. Again, it's a way of doing things better. I'm a farmer, I have to think like that. Otherwise, still not making it. Anyway, the density in the OCP, also, that high density is really costly. Costly for us. Well, I won't go on with that. But anyway, it's costly because we have to have more roads, and we're looking at Throop Road again, which is another, and there again, Throop Road what's the design on that? Is that again with two sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides that have to be painted every 6 months because the paint runs off and all that sort of thing? It's maintenance. And I would say remove the climate language in as well, because the costs in the OCP, because the cost to implement climate, whatever that is, to make it more climate resilient, whatever that is, that money's drying up. So we need to be looking at things a lot more realistically. And do we spend money to save money, or spend money to make more money, or spend money to waste more money?
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank
Edwards.
you.
Okay, so I believe that's everyone. So we'll move on into our, okay, go ahead. Our final speaker tonight. You'll need to turn the microphone back on, please.
There, can you hear me? Yeah, so I would just like to know.
Give us your name, please.
John.
Okay.
John Mills. Been moved here since 2008. Moved here because it's a smaller town. It was attractive. Now, not so much. Travel in and out of work for every day, price of gas, traffic backed up. The cost is outrageous. My property tax almost doubled since I've lived here. So, what was it, last 3 years, it went up 36% or something like that. To add another 10 to 12% on top is outrageous. What are the people seeing for this cost increase? What do the people of the town get? More traffic? More builds? There's tons of units sitting here that aren't being sold, and we're still pushing builds all over the place. There's no way to solve this traffic problem. Like, everything that's come out is not doable, roadblocks, costing people money. So where do we go from here? How much money did the town bring in from permitting in the last year or two? Where's that going? Where is everybody's money going? Because I don't see it. There's no resolution here. What are the people that are paying for this getting? It's becoming too much, So what's inflation going up? 2.5%? And our taxes are going up 10 to 12%? Not happy.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I can turn microphones off. I just can't turn them on for you. Okay. So council, I'll turn your attention to the consent agenda. So that would be that the following items be adopted by consent. 7.2 correspondence, 7.3 report of the chief administrative officer, 7.4 land use and development committee meeting minutes, 7.5 the zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments, 7.6 density bonusing provisions, the zoning bylaw review and proposed repeal. There a mover for consent, or is someone looking to pull anything? Councillor Beddoes, okay, I see hands here. Councillor Beddoes and St. Pierre, then Bateman. Go ahead.
I'd like to have a correspondence, I'd like to pull 29E, please.
29E?
The elder letter.
29E of the correspondence will be pulled. Councillor St. Pierre. Okay, I'll come back to you, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'd like to pull number 17, request for support pedestrian safety improvements on Highway 14, sent by CAO Gray to MLA La Jeunesse.
Okay, so that's pulled. We'll follow the next meeting. Is anyone else wishing to pull anything from consent? 7.5, well, it's up to you. Councillor McMath is pulling 7.5. So there's some correspondence in 7.5. Otherwise, Councillor St. Pierre, I will turn to you to move the remaining items. Is moved. Is there a seconder for the remaining items? Councillor Bateman. The rest will be resolved as stated in their particular items. So everyone all those in favor, please. Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Counselor Pearson, I cannot see you, so in the event that I miss you, just please speak out. Otherwise, I'll deem that you,
I'm waving.
okay, but I still can't see you, so thank
Okay.
you for waving. Okay, so moving on into our agenda then. Sorry, yes? I can't hear you in the microphone.
In the past, we've been able to see Zoom participants in the upper left of the screen or upper right. I don't know why we can't do that any longer.
I don't know. That's an IT question.
Due to staff, why is this not possible?
I think they're looking at that right now.
So Counselor Pearson's camera is currently off, so I can't grab his screen. Here we are. Give me one moment.
If the camera's on, they can. I think if the camera's off, they can't.
Well, I usually turn it on for the vote, so.
Yeah, because when we're looking at a PowerPoint, it's,
When the procedure bylaw states the cameras must be on during these meetings.
it does state that. It's just sometimes when you're looking at a PowerPoint, someone's yawning at the camera. And I think when you're speaking, yes, but otherwise. Okay, can we move on into our meeting and then we can see, we'll see that Counselor Pearson is visible to us when he wishes to speak. Okay, well, now we can't see the screen, so. Okay, thank you, Counselor Pearson. He turned it off. I think it's the case like for tonight, when Counselor Pearson wishes to speak, then we'll move him forward. Otherwise, we know that he's there because then we can't see the screen or unless we pay to get more screens, which doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Item 7.5 will fall into our next. It'll be under item 13 is 7.5. The correspondence will follow to the next regular meeting. Okay, so that moves us to 8.2, which is a request for sponsorship from the Sooke Bike Club, the Enduro Race event. Recommendation is that council consider that council sponsor the event from the Sooke Bike Club for the Enduro Race event 2026 on May the 3rd in the amount of 750 to come from contingency. We needed to identify the source. I'll pick that. Councillor St. Pierre, are you prepared to move that? Yes. Councillor Haldane is seconding that. Would you like to speak to it?
It seems honestly good for the community and a good way to test out a potential partnership in the future with the Sooke Bike Club. The letter makes clear some of the economic benefits to the community and that all of it's going into amenities for the community. So that makes a lot of sense. I would suggest it come from sponsorship until sponsorship is exhausted. And as previously discussed in other similar situations, at that point, we can look at council contingency.
Okay, so you would like it to draw out of sponsorship until that is flat. Okay. All right, that's fine. Councillor Haldane, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, sure. Normally I'm okay with it being kid stuff, but something like a bike race where they bring in lots of people for riding the bikes, but they also bring in lots of spectator stuff. It's good for business, for our downtown, for small stores and so on. And I think for $750, it's a good bang for our buck. I mean, again, I don't normally push this sort of thing. I mean, pickleball is different. I mean, it's just a bunch of people playing their own event. This will have a broader reach for people, business, and everything else. And I think we need to support more things going on in the community, even if it is spectator sports and things like that too. So I'm voting for this. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything from anyone else? Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, so I'm in support of this. This money will go to hiring professional first aid services for the event. And as Councillor Haldane says, it's not a simple sponsorship of a pickleball tournament or other such community events. As Councillor Haldane mentioned last month when we rejected that sponsorship application, these are not the times to, we have to be very careful with how we deliver our money. Yeah, so that's that.
Okay, thank you. Anything from anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Anyone oppose? See none, that carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up is Bylaw section 9.1. So this is the zoning amendment for 7350 West Coast Road, bylaw number 935-600-115. So there is a suite of recommendations here. Some of these have come through from the Land Use Committee. And then there was one that they forwarded up to council directly, but I'll turn it over to staff to take us through the report. And then I understand the consultant will follow with their report after our staff report. So over to staff, please.
Thank you. Great. So yeah, this presentation summarizes the supplemental report for 7350 West Coast Road, specifically the outstanding issue of the Highway 14 frontage improvements. So its purpose is to walk council through the revised options, explain the key policy and implementation considerations, and seek direction on what frontage framework should be secured prior to bylaw adoption. At the March 3rd LUDC meeting, staff presented the broader rezoning application together with several Highway 14 frontage improvement options. The committee made no recommendation on the contents of the Highway 14 frontage improvements, instead leaving that matter for council's consideration today. Since that meeting, the applicant has submitted a revised version of its original alternative, as well as a new second alternative. The supplemental report is intended to be read together with that earlier LUDC report that is included on the agenda, but this will focus again on the outstanding Highway 14 issues. It's not working. Clicker's not working. Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, so the principal consideration for council is determining the Highway 14 frontage improvement framework to be secured through the rezoning process. Notably, the options before council differ in four main ways. The extent of frontage to be improved, the timing of delivery, cost responsibility, and the road cross-section components. Council's direction would inform preparation of the Section 219 covenant together with any required development variance permit prior to the bylaw adoption. For clarity, the frontage under consideration has been divided into four segments from west to east. So segment 1 extends from the western property boundary to Eranan East. Segment 2 extends from Eranan East to Eranan Boulevard. Segment 3 extends from Eranan Boulevard to Grant Road. And segment 4 extends from Grant Road to the John Muir Elementary School crosswalk. The policy context for the frontage issue remains consistent, which was set out in the earlier staff report to LUDC. The official community plan supports active transportation, complete streets, and safe connected conditions for all travel modes. Staff have linked the frontage improvements to broader transportation objectives, including school access, multimodal safety, and connected walking and cycling facilities. Staff view these works as growth-related infrastructure that should be considered in coordination with residential growth. Following the March 3rd LUDC meeting, the applicant submitted two revised alternatives for council's consideration. Alternative 1 is a revised version of the applicant's original proposal and increases the proposed contribution towards segment 4 from 35% to 50%. Alternative 2 is a new option submitted to staff on April 7th. It applies to segments 3 and 4 with its construction triggered at the 91st lot or subdivision of the first lot within phase 5, whichever occurs first. The frontage components of both alternatives are shown in the later slides. In summary, the report presents 5 options for council's consideration. Option A provides full frontage improvements to the full SDS bylaw standard. Option B reflects the applicant's alternative 1, revised following the March 3rd LUDC meeting with a limited extent, modified cross-section and cost-sharing approach. Option C reflects the staff-supported modified frontage framework along the full extent of the frontage. Option D reflects the applicant's alternative 2 with a reduced modified cross-section for segments 3 and 4 and a later delivery trigger. Option E would postpone the decision and direct staff to return for further refinement. Notably, since publication of this report and agenda, the applicant has requested to present an additional option, or alternative 3, option F, for council's consideration. This has not been included here given time constraints. However, the applicant has requested to present following staff's presentation. Starting with option A, it would secure full frontage improvements along segments 1 through 4 from the western property boundary to the John Muir Elementary School crosswalk. The timing of construction would be triggered at time of subdivision following phase 1 or Pike Pole located north of the existing Aaron Estates development. Cost responsibility would rest with the applicant. In terms of the cross section, the option reflects full compliance with the Highway 14 standard in the STS bylaw. This standard includes the center median, travel lanes, bike lanes, curb gutter, boulevard, sidewalk, street lighting, and street trees. Option B reflects the applicant's revised alternative 1. It's limited to segments 3 and 4. Segment 3 would be delivered at the 131st lot, while segment 4 would be subject to a 5-year repayment condition following subdivision of the 131st lot. Cost responsibility under this option is split. Segment 3 would be funded by the applicant. Segment 4 would be funded 50% by the applicant and 50% by the district, with the contribution repaid if segment 4 is not built within 5 years of that 131st lot. This option uses a modified cross-section, the same as option C, which we'll see in the next slide, consisting of travel lanes, 1.5 meter shoulder, curb gutter, 2 meter boulevard or ditch, 3 meter multi-use pathway, and street lighting. Great. Can you guys forward the presentation, please? Thank you. Option C secures a modified frontage framework across the full Highway 14 frontage extending to the school crosswalk. It applies to segments 1 through 4. Recommended timing under this option would result in earlier delivery of segments 3 and 4 following Pike Pole or phase 1 of the development, with segments 1 and 2 deferred until subdivision of the 91st lot to coincide with the secondary access requirement to be located approximately 550 meters west of Aaron Boulevard. The cost responsibility would rest with the applicant. And in terms of frontage components, this option uses the same modified cross-section as option B, consisting of travel lanes, 1.5 meter shoulder, curb gutter, 2 meter boulevard or ditch, 3 meter multi-use pathway, and street lighting. Next slide, please. Option D applies 2 different cross-sections for segments 3 and 4 presented on separate slides. So starting with segment 3, located between Aaron Boulevard and Grant Road. This option would deliver frontage improvements with subdivision of the 91st lot, or the first phase within phase 5, whichever occurs first. Cost responsibility would rest with the applicant. The cross-section approach for this segment is a modified cross-section, but it's reduced from the options B and C. In terms of frontage.
Jaden, can you pause?
Yep.
Sorry, folks, if you're having a conversation, can you please take it outside? Because I can't hear our staff if other people are talking at the same time. Thank you.
So in terms of frontage components, segment 3 cross-section includes travel lanes, curb gutter, a 3 meter multi-use pathway, and street lighting. But notably, it does not include a shoulder or boulevard ditch separation between the travel lanes and multi-use pathway as presented with the other options. Segment 4 of option D is located between Grant Road and the school crosswalk. Its timing triggers the same as segment 3 of option D prior to final subdivision approval of the 91st lot or first phase or first subdivision within phase 5. Cost responsibility would also rest with the applicant. The cross-section approach for segment 4 is also a reduced cross-section, although it differs from segment 3 with the inclusion of a shoulder and boulevard. So its components include travel lanes, a 1 meter shoulder, reduced from the 1.5 meter in options B and C, a 2 meter boulevard, curb and gutter, 3-meter multi-use pathway, and street lighting. Option E would postpone the decision on the frontage framework and direct staff to return with a revised option for further council consideration. Because it is a deferral option, the extent, timing, cost, responsibility, and cross-section approach would need to be determined through further refinement. The report notes that this may allow for additional clarification on timing triggers, cross-section details, design constraints, and implementation. It would also, of course, delay direction on the frontage issue and delay covenant refinement and bylaw sequencing. As noted previously, the applicant has requested to present a third option not reflected here. So a third alternative, option F. In conclusion, a staff's preferred frontage option is option C. As set out in the supplemental report, staff consider option C to provide the strongest alignment with district policy objectives, to secure the school connection at an earlier stage, and to maintain continuity along the broader Highway 14 frontage. Staff also view it as a more balanced and implementable approach than the STS bylaw standard, or option A. If council is not prepared to support option C in full, staff's minimum supportable outcome would be a direction that secures segment 3 and 4 from Aranan Boulevard to the school crosswalk. It would be also at the applicant's sole cost and with an early trigger, ideally following Pike Pole or another equivalent earlier trigger. This report also states that staff do not support a frontage approach that relies on district cost sharing for the school connection, or that introduces reduced cross-section standards without appropriate horizontal separation between the vehicle traffic and pathway users. And the recommendation before council is shown on this screen as drafted in the supplemental report. If council selects an option tonight, that option will replace the placeholder in the second clause. And staff would then bring forward the draft section 219 covenant and any required development variance permit prior to bylaw adoption. This concludes my presentation. Thank you. And the applicant, as noted, is present and has requested to present a subsequent option for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you, staff. Before I go to our applicant, there were some questions that came up in the public Q&A or question period just about this development in particular, asking about the maximum number of residents, the current and proposed zoning, how many units could be done both in and out of the sewer specified area, and a few others that I may have missed, but I'm wondering if you have any response back to that query that came forward earlier.
Yeah, I can respond briefly here. So the first question regarding the number of dwellings in Aranan. Right now, we have conducted studies to consider 331 ground-oriented residential forms of development, including 1,800 square meters of commercial space over the 41.3 hectare CD area. So the differences in the zones, basically the RU2 zone is a rural residential zone with minimum parcel sizes of 4 hectares. This, of course, can be subdivided with the 41.3 hectares on septic systems. However, the CD16 would secure much smaller parcels of 500 square meters or slightly larger in 3 different areas. Area A would permit single-family dwelling as well as small-scale multi-unit residential dwelling. So that would be up to 4 units on a single parcel. Area B would also permit the same thing as well as townhouses. And Area C would be the village center, which is the core area within the West Aranan area, which would support townhouses as well as commercial development, which would be consistent with the commercial or community residential land use designation within the OCP.
Okay. And just procedurally to our corporate officer, the readings, the recommendation that came to the land use is still below. So we still need to move through those readings, if I'm not mistaken, rather than going straight to what's on the screen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the items which, so this the recommendations in this begin with the recommendations made by the LUDC, which traditionally would have been in the consent agenda, but were moved out in order to keep the entire item separate.
Okay.
The bylaw, the 3 readings to the bylaw are separate from the adoption of the covenant proposals, which could be, as long as you hold votes on the covenants before you do the adoption of the bylaw, then it would all be consistent.
Okay, thank you, because the one that's outstanding is more related to the second paragraph part of option B, determining that option. Okay. All right, just procedurally, so I know what to do here. So I will now invite the applicant, if you would like to please come forward for your presentation, please. Thank you. Just need to turn on the microphone.
Turn on the light.
There we go.
My apologies. I'll start over. Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Dean Strongathorn. I am a planning consultant, and with me this evening is the owner, Brian Butler, and other staff. I would just say as a comment before getting into the specifics which relate to the actual road frontage, that this has been a vision of the Butler family for generations. I know I did some preliminary work on the vision of this back in 2008, which culminated in terms of what the overall plan is today. There is the actual application for rezoning is only the west side of the property. There is one lot that's about 176 acres. The west side is just over 100 acres. Overall, in terms of just a comment back from a comment made by members in the audience earlier, that about 36% of the site will be either parks and or open space, which is a combination of detention pond and riparian areas. As it relates to specifically park dedication, about 26% is actual park. It substantially exceeds the 5% park dedication as required by the Local Government Act. There is an extensive key to this is maintaining as much of the natural site as possible. There is 4.1 kilometers of trails that have been identified, which also then includes both nature trails in terms of keeping the natural environment as much as possible, as well as urban trails where they're more in keeping with kind of the village center and surrounds. I would also just say that as we've gone through this process with staff over the course of more than 1 year, several years, and yes, there has been some toing and froing in terms of coming up with the package and in terms of the many package, which includes contribution to a housing agreement and so on. We have basically come to a consensus on all of those issues in terms of the development pattern. And really the one outstanding item relates to the highway frontage. And I would have to say to council that I'm sorry if we have so many options that there's possibility of confusing you, but I'll just go through I understand, I should say, if you can be confused. I will just say before just going through my presentation now, as I've basically said it without going through the presentation, is that the reason why we've come up with this last presentation very recently was a combination of obviously the meeting that we had with the planning committee, which we realized that there was some very good discussions about there possibly coming out with, which was then described as alternate 4. And then also in other discussions and in receiving the staff report that we received on Friday in terms of being available to the public, we then did make a couple of minor tweaks in terms of, for example, the width of the shoulder, for example, to more correspond with the comments in the staff report. So perhaps with that context, I will just very quickly go through and just hit the one arrow to the right, I guess. We'll see what happens here. And we all know where it is. I won't belabor that. I'm sure you've been through there, and you can see kind of in the lower right-hand corner, that is the 63 lots. That is the current RNN. And again, the whole point of what we're trying to achieve is just simply mirroring what you see already at RNN. And so that is kind of the bar in terms of what we want to achieve. And again, this is awfully small writing, but again, this goes to the land use committee recommendations. And as you can see, the larger point, no recommendation was on Highway 14. And we did make our position, I think, quite clear at the planning committee. And I can say at certainly times prior to that, in terms of our many conversations regarding highway frontage along Highway 14, in terms of what was doable and what isn't. So options A and C, option C, which is recommended by staff, would require a full frontage of improvements along the entire frontage of West Coast Road from the very westerly end of Aaron, which is down by the driveway that goes into the marina, all the way to John Muir School. As you can see from this picture, you can see the substantial amount of rock face as you go down the hill towards the marina property and the road called Butler, Maine. It is in approximately 1,200 meters long. In terms of our engineers, our civil engineers, I should say, they have determined that the estimated cost for that is in the order of $6 million. There was a staff going back about a year ago, and they had estimated a cost of about $3.5 million. But with the extent of actually rock blasting, moving hydro lines, and so on and so forth, the estimate from our civil engineers in round figures, $6 million. And I'll be very candid, it's not feasible, not sustainable, not financially sustainable, not feasible. And so we were looking for alternatives that we thought would meet the spirit and intent, but which would also make something that would be financially feasible and would provide a suitable set of pedestrian and biking lanes. And so you can see, it's hard to see in this picture, but Aaron Boulevard comes down, and all of Aaron Boulevard is all accessed through, as I say, through the main spine, which is Aaron Boulevard. It all comes down to the current intersection. Our proposal is to extend a pathway all the way from Aaron Boulevard, capturing all of the current as well as future residents of Aaron, and make a pathway between Aaron Boulevard to Grant Road, as well as from Grant Road down to the actual school crosswalk. Yes, and so to the point that was made by staff, what was before you before was that there was a combination of contribution to the second half of it by the district. And we did hear that may be an issue. So we've looked at another option. And if I go to option D, and I've now called it option F because it's just slightly different than what was in your package. And the only reason for that is that we've extended the shoulder between Grant Road and the crosswalk at the school to 1.5 meters wide. We showed 1 meter wide, and in the staff report, it did mention about being 1.5 meter wide. And in the option F, in terms of the space between Aaron Boulevard and Grant Road, we have also provided, and again, this is awfully small, but we've actually provided, and again, one of the things that was requested, that the original plan had simply a curb and a 3-meter pathway. We've now actually incorporated a boulevard or a space between the travel lane and the 3-meter pathway. The pathway between Grant Road and the school is actually wider, and there's a wider distance between the travel lane and the pathway. Part of that is geography. It would be easier to do, but much of it is that really, in terms of the school population going to the elementary school, an awful lot of them, way more than is coming from Aaron, comes down Grant Road, all the catchment area. So we've tried to make a significant push to make sure there's sufficient distance between the actual pathway and the actual road lane. Key difference between either our prior option to now is that, number one, 100% of the cost would be paid for by Aranan so 100% of the cost be paid for Aranan according to those plans that you see right in front of you in terms of the cross sections. The timing of it would all be done, as I say, at the start of phase 3, which is effectively the 54th lot. So whereas before we were suggesting that the time would be in phase 5 or the 131st lot, we've also recognized, again, from some of the comments that were at the planning committee, that there was an interest in trying to sort of speed up or expedite the timing in which this would take place. So I think those are the two key things is what you see here now, which is unfortunately referred to as option F. It really is tweaking what is already on your agenda, and it really reflects comments that were in the staff report that's presented to you. So there is as I say, a boulevard between the curb and the pathway between Aranan Boulevard and Grant Road, and then there's an additional wider shoulder between Grant Road and Aranan Boulevard. It will be all lit and will be a significant improvement over what it is today. And I think just in terms of being practical, in terms of finding a solution along with all the other amenities, I believe that Aranan will provide to both residents and the community that this is a reasonable, albeit still not inexpensive, solution in terms of providing that continuity between Aranan and the elementary school. I think maybe I could perhaps just leave it at that point, and there may be some questions. Does that?
No, I think you're good. Thank you very much for the presentation, and we have also the materials here. Our staff gave them those to refer to. So I think should matters as we get into the dialogue amongst council, if there's anything else, I'll invite you back. Just so you don't have to sit there the whole time. Okay, so members of council, I'll start at the beginning here, and that'll be starting with the land use recommendations. So that would be that council give first, second, and third reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 935-600-115, 2026, to amend zoning bylaw number 600 by rezoning a portion of the property legally described as Lot 2, Section 18 and 19, Sooke District, Plan 46871, 7350 West Coast Road, from rural residential RU2 to the Aranan Estates Comprehensive Development Zone CD16, as shown in Schedule A, Attachment 02, CD16 zone. Councillor McMath will move that. Councillor St. Pierre is a seconder. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor McMath? Councillor St. Pierre?
Yes, actually, these were discussed at length in the Land Use Committee. And the concerns that were brought forward by staff were mostly to do with what staff should be doing, which is basically protecting the taxpayers and making sure that amenities that were agreed upon would be built. It was felt that what the developer was asking for, given the developer's track record, was something that would happen, and that this is where we could actually be flexible. So the flexibility is not in terms of any less in the way of amenities, but more in terms of the delivery of the amenities, parks and so on and so forth, and when they happen and in what quantity and that sort of thing. I know there's always concerns that, some kind of deal was made. In this particular case, it's simply that we're extending trust to the developer that this will happen because they have an excellent track record with the district. So I thought I should just mention that. And I can answer any questions if I can.
Okay, no, that's fine. Is that Councillor Pearson? Yes, Councillor Pearson would like to speak. Go ahead, please.
No, I was kind of holding my hand up to make the motion, but no, I'll be supporting this motion. I think it's a long process to get to what I think is a good spot. A developer who has lived by his word, says what he's going to do, and then puts action to words. So everything that I've seen from Aranan in history, and is a very positive step towards a good quality development. It should be noted that this development has bought into the sewer specified area a number of years ago, and it's always been in the plans to develop this property. So it's actually really exciting to see this finally get to this point. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearson. Are there other, go ahead, Councillor Beddoes?
Counselor Bate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Al.
Okay, Jeff. It's all right. So we'll get by it. Yeah, anyways, thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favor of this. I just want to draw back in about 30 years ago. I'm just guessing, could be 28. I was on the Advisory Planning Commission that was struck before incorporation. And at that time, it was approved, this area was approved for 350 lots. So I see here many decades later, it's now at 331, but it was recognized back then that, you know, where we wanted to see some of this housing, and I understand people don't necessarily want to see more housing, and I can sympathize with that. But at least it's on the side of a mountain. It's not farmland. And that was one of the main reasons why back then the advisory committee made recommendations that this go through, was for that. And I've seen you know, what's up there now, and they're wide boulevards, they're nice houses. Certainly might be out of my price range, but there is a market for those housing. So I will support this. Thank you.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'll support this as well. It's a very significant rezoning to enable the build out as presented tonight. I think it was noted earlier that the OCP is very much focused on smart growth in the town center. However, the OCP also very clearly states that development is to happen within community residential within close proximity to existing infrastructure. So we do have the West Coast Road available at the doorstep, and we also have the sewer treatment plant nearby. So as much as some projects might be, anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Haldane.
Yeah, I mean, like pointed out by Councillor Beddoes, I mean, this project there in Arian's been going on for 28-ish years, and it's taken that long for these build outs to happen. These build outs, I mean, when you talk about 200 and 300 lots, it sounds like a ton of properties, but if you build it out over 20 or 30 years and then you divide that up, you know, we're not talking about thousands of builds here over each year. So this is going to be probably a 30-year project would be my guess. But the most important part for me is we're talking about 20,000 square feet of commercial space. So that commercial space pays 4 times the tax rate of single family homes and residential. We're desperately in need of commercial space here, but more importantly, we're in desperate need of commercial space within residential areas. You want to get people out of cars and you get people so they don't have to drive to our roundabout in the middle of Sooke. This is the kind of stuff I've been looking at for a long time, and we've neglected to do this type of development for some time. Sun River should have their own big commercial area, and people should be able to go to a pub and a restaurant and a grocery store somewhere close by where they're not coming up Sooke all the time. But anyhow, I'm in favor of it because I think the commercial component is fantastic and we need more stuff like this. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to close off this portion of our discussion on this development tonight, I add my support to this as well. This has been an active development, as we've heard, for several decades now. And in terms of folks that are concerned about the environmental impact, there are studies that are done and the developer has been keeping on top of that. And as far as I'm aware, there has not been any there hasn't been a conflict with what has been planned or what was said to be done over all these years. It's been done in good faith, as we've seen. The houses that are built allow for builders to showcase their craft, excellence in design, unique character throughout, and an opportunity for residents to build out and realize the dream home as they see fit. No two are the same, and it's very attractive to look at. So I know there's other parts of this that we will be getting into next, but in terms of what's been done, this is one developed and that in my time sitting here, I've never received a complaint about, and I cannot say that about every development around our town. And when there has been concerns raised, the developer in question has attended to those rapidly, quickly, and effectively. So I'm very confident that the rest of this development will continue to be built out under that same guidance and that same approach as that has been done for several decades now and has been stated by others. This is one when the district of Sooke established the sewer specified area. It was known, this development was known and has been active in seeking sewer services as needed as the phases come to the table. So I'll leave it at that. And we'll call the question on this particular motion. All those in favor, please. Is anyone opposed? None are opposed, so that carries unanimously. I'll go to the next part here, and this is where we can get into some questions, and that would be that council received the supplemental report dated April 13, 2026, titled 7350 West Coast Road, PLN 01660, supplemental report to council on Highway 14 frontage improvements. Yes?
I apologize. There's just a few more recommendations from the LUDC section, beginning with the section 219 covenants.
So not this part, because I was looking to receive both of these first, and then council can ask questions about that, because there's a option listed out that would be blank in that particular recommendation.
That works too, if you would like to, if you'd like to take all the section 219 covenant options together after you've built the final one, then sure, that is viable. We just wanted to make sure you didn't inadvertently skip.
No,
through it.
not missing them. I'm just trying to, I know that council has questions and will want some time to be able to deliberate on the options. So we'll look to receive that, as well as the developer's presentation, the Aranan Development Rezoning Application presentation that was put forward today to receive for information. This then will allow council to ask questions should they have any. Okay, so look to receive Councillor St. Pierre and Councillor Haldane as a seconder. I'm going to open it up to questions, because then the rest of this, as we get into the 219, will indicate an option of which we have many to consider. So I figured this would be an opportunity to put these on the table now, and then council can ask staff and or the consultant any questions they have, and that will hopefully then shed some light on where we proceed from there. So, Councillor St. Pierre.
I was hoping to maybe move one of the options forward so we could discuss an option in particular to begin with, just to simplify the process a little bit, because I think
Well, then in this case, then you can just ask me to call the question, and then we can go to the next part.
then perhaps I will do so.
You just want to call. I think others though have some questions, and I would like to have time for others to be able to do that before we get there. Because I see Councillor Bateman, I think, wants to ask some questions. No?
Sure, I've got questions. I'm a little confused as to where to start asking. Are we talking about the section 219 covenant first before the frontage?
Well, it's the options. You've received a report on options, and our staff presented a report on options, and the
Okay.
consultant gave another report with another option. So that's why it's receiving all of that, and then you
Yeah.
might have some questions about those options.
Okay, I'll muddle on as I tend to do. So I'm curious here. My first question's is section 219 covenant. I did ask this at the land use committee. It regards the affordable housing contribution. And in this agreement, we are getting 5,000 per single family detached dwelling prior to subdivision approval, up to a maximum of 250,000. That seems like a very low number, given that there are, I believe you said 231, or was it 331? 331. Yeah. So at 5,000 per single family lot, that comes in at, let me do my math, 25 homes, not two. So, and I believe the answer I received back at the land use committee was this was a staff recommendation. So I'm through you to staff. Please explain that to me.
Yeah, through the mayor. So without a defined policy for affordable housing contributions, we have typically taken $3,000 per lot being subdivided. Given the projected timeline of this development proposal, we thought it was pertinent to front load the affordable housing contributions. And because of the scale of development, we settled on a negotiated number of $250,000 rather than leaving that number hanging in perpetuity for the entire development. So I think this was taken generally from how our affordable housing policy is drafted, which would be for proposals of this size and scale, would be a negotiated number versus a per unit or per lot amount. And given inflation and potential construction over maybe 15 up to 20 years, we thought that, yeah, it was important to increase that number and to cap it at the $250,000 mark and front load.
Yeah. It's my hearing or my capacity to understand things that I'm losing as I turn 70. So at each phase, you will seek additional affordable housing contributions. Is that what I got? Or for the full 7 phases, the 250,000 is the max?
So as recommended, we've asked for $5,000 per lot. And so that would be going through the first phase of subdivision, basically. So $5,000 up to $250,000, regardless of phasing. Once we reach $250,000, it ends.
That's the extent of it. Okay. Well, I dare say that it's strange. I mean, if at even $3,000 per lot at 331 lots, that's $1 million, and we're taking a quarter of that. Anyway, that's been the discussion, and I defer to your wisdom on that. So I have other questions, or others may want to jump in at this point.
Okay, well, you can ask your other question if you like. And we'll go to Councillor Beddoes.
Staying on the theme of money, the applicant has told us that the full frontage option A would cost 6.3 million. I'm wondering about the cost in today's dollars for sections 3 and 4 as proposed in options D and now F. Do you have a price tag on what this will be?
Through the mayor, I don't have a price tag. Sorry.
Perhaps our applicant can speak to that.
Okay, maybe just if you just hold on that, I'll call your consultant up when there may be other questions. You can answer them all at once. Okay, well, I'll just pause for a second. Otherwise, you have to sit up and down. Anything further for our staff?
Well, yeah, I was curious in the Erin and West rezoning application on page 131 of tonight's agenda. There's the statement, quote, "The existing shoulder along the north side of the highway will be improved to 2.0 meters with reasonable variances when this is not fully possible." So that's taking us to the western extreme of the development. That's a question for your.
Okay, we'll
for
have
further
them up
consideration.
answer that all at once.
Because the 2 point, anyway. That's all for.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I just have a quick question. I've had a second look at the property and actually walked through it and had a really good look. And my concern, like with this last option, which is either D or F, I don't know which it is, we've settled on the last one that is proposed here, which I am sort of leaning to, but I see that the work in front of the school doesn't happen till 54 lots are sold. Is that correct? Can somebody give me an idea of what that time frame is? What do you expect? I mean, I know it's not exact science, but is it like 3 weeks or 3 years or 30 years or?
I can respond.
Sure, please, somebody.
Yeah. So with phase 1, Pike Pole, that's currently 31 lots. So feasibly, phase 2 is where this number would likely be reached. And I would say roughly, maybe the applicant would be best to answer projected timelines, but maybe in the course of 2 to 5 years.
Okay, and the reason why I asked that is that, like I say, I had a look at this other sidewalk and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But what does make a lot of sense to me is in front of that school. And it's imperative to me that we get that built out sooner than later. And it's a mess there and it's dangerous. So I'm not really, I'm leaning towards the D, but I'm not leaning towards doing it in 54 lots. I would want to see it done sooner. So I'm just wondering if the applicant be willing to make those improvements before the 54 lot. Can I ask that question?
Yeah, I will ask the consultant or on behalf of the applicant to please come forward. There was just a few from Councillor Bateman and then this one in particular as well. Thank you. You'll just need to turn the microphone back on.
Through the chair, I get to the first question, the cost of doing option F, which is just a tweaking of of what you got. I'm so sorry. D, but just it was actually expanded a bit, is between 700 and 750,000. Now the 54 lots, that is actually Pike Pole subdivision has been a subdivision been in the work for many years. So the first actual phase of Aranan West, which is what the subject of the rezoning, and again, I don't want to confuse phases as well, but it's phase, it would be the second phase, the 54th lot would be the second phase in Aranan West, or what you've got in your report, just to be clear, it's the third phase. I think it would be, you know, somewhere in the order of 5 years. Now it is, I could be a bit careful because it is obviously subject to market conditions in terms of, but that would be the estimate of the timing. Again, to the councillor, the reason why we put it phase 3 is that it still is a substantial amount of money. And so that then did allow for the second phase, which is 22 lots to be developed. There obviously in that there is trails that are required. There is actually a washroom that is part of the phase 2 which will be in the and each phase has a number of associated improvements and amenities and costs, obviously. So it was identified as phase 3 or the 54th lot, which is the beginning of phase 3, so that there would be, it was kind of the second phase within the Aranan West development. So that was the reasoning behind it.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, but I see it a little differently. I see that if we were going to not go ahead with the $6 million one, which is just absolutely going to rip up Highway 14, which you're going to rip up in 10 years anyways, and you're getting a trade-off for $750,000. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
That's yes.
Okay. Then I'd like to see that done sooner. I mean, this is all about a trade-off, and my job is to try to extract as much out of you as possible for the community, for amenities, and that is an area that I have been very concerned about over the years. And like I say, I had a look at Aranan and the big wide streets development up there now would, to me, satisfy the streetscape that we're looking for in communities. So I'm willing to let the Highway 14 portion go, providing that there's some amenities for our community and our kids, and for a dangerous situation in that front of that school. So I'm hoping you would reconsider that timeline. I know it's still a lot of money, but it is a big project, and sometimes you have to put some money up front, as you know. I'm okay with the last option, but I'm not with the timeline.
Through the chair, and again, we need to speak to the owner. But may I ask? The key concern is from, because there's segment 3 and segment 4. There's from Aranan Boulevard to Grant Road, then Grant Road to the school, and you made reference to the school. So is your primary concern is that Grant Road to the school? In other words, if there was perhaps some additional phasing, and again, I don't want to, not here to negotiate with you per se, but just trying to getting an understanding.
I want some clarification, and I'm willing to give it. I'd be happy if tomorrow you started on the section from Grant Road to the crosswalk for the school in that area. The other section from Grant Road to an Aranan front driveway, that can wait for 3 years as far as I'm concerned. I've noticed up in Aranan, there's not exactly a whole lot of kids running around up there, but there is a whole lot of kids that come down that Grant Road. I know it's not necessarily your responsibility, but again, our job here is to extract something for the community, and I think that would be a better amenity. So again, if that's a possibility, then I'd look more favorably on approach the D version, where F
gives you a little more, actually.
Yeah. So you might want to consider that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for the consultant that's here? Councillor Haldane?
Yeah, so given what Councillor Beddoes is talking about, is there something significant that we could come up with if that was to start right away? Because I understand what's going on within the subdivision itself, building parks and trails, bathrooms and stuff like that. And maybe it would suffice if similar value for that cross-section of road going to John Muir School, we could put some bathrooms and some parks and trails in later on in that phase to cover something happening earlier on the section between Grant Road and the elementary school.
Yeah, so phase two, which I mentioned, also has got what's referred to as a major trailhead. And so a major trailhead is larger amenities than a minor trailhead. And then there are the pathways. So there are certain things that are associated, say, with phase two. The extent to which there may be a trade-off at some point in time, I'm sure the municipality wants to see all those trails, those.
And that will, but this is just all because you guys are going to be expected to pull in a lot of money going all out of your pocket before you get any money coming back in. Maybe there's a way between us and district staff that you can put the amenity money towards the connection to John Muir School before you do some of the other stuff within the subdivision itself to try and help get kids moving on Grant Road down to the elementary school sooner, and we'll worry about the trails and the stuff at a later portion of another phase in exchange, I would say. So then the money is still, you got a bunch of money coming out at the same time. I think you're trying, I'm not sure how to put it on.
Thank you for that. I'll go to Councillor McMath.
Just for clarity here, with the council's recommendations to you, is that something that before we go ahead with a motion that you can resolve with your client?
I could have a conversation.
Okay, so perhaps we should have a break.
Well, right now we're still just receiving for information. And so I can also, before we go to the next one, I can move on to other items and return to this one.
Okay.
So we're just right now receiving for information, the reports that came forward to consider. Okay, so on this particular one, I appreciate the options that staff have put forward and as well as that of the applicants. I'm open to looking at a different option as opposed to frontage all the way to the far end of the subdivision. Simply because the road is very narrow and then the highway narrows considerably on from there. So to blast out that whole section in order to make the frontage down to the westerly end, I think would be particularly challenging and may cause concern to either the residents that currently live there or others that would see vast amounts of that hillside and the like taken out. In terms of the subdivision of Aranan itself, I recognize that it isn't necessarily a family first-time home buyer. However, it is full of vehicles that drive past an elementary school. So that's why I would agree that there needs to be some improvements towards the pedestrian traffic from Grant Road over. I know a large number of parents that drive their children every day because they are concerned about the speed of traffic along the highway because there is no school bus because they are in proximity of walking distance to the school. So they cannot take a bus there. They do have to walk or get a ride. And if you're there at drop-off time, it's very busy. So having a safer option along that crosswalk and then something I think I'm sort of on line with Councillor Beddoes here in that I would like to see this section advance sooner. But in terms of the trail network and amenities, that's what would make this a desirable place to live. So those things need to happen. Like you can't trade them off because otherwise, why would you want to live in the subdivision if there's dead end trails and no movement? So I hear your point, Councillor Haldane, but it kind of needs to happen as part of the phase, which would then make it an attractive place to live and buy and invest and do all those things. So I think that would just be confusing if we looked at amenities within the subdivision to flow. I think it just needs to, it seems like our staff and the consultant have come up with a timeline that's agreeable to both parties. and resolve to get it done in a certain way. It's just the frontage here in question is what we're looking at. So on that note, what I'll do is I'm going to call the question on receiving this. I will allow the opportunity, because there's options here for council in that we can defer this to the next meeting. We can move it and move the covenant and then just defer a vote. That doesn't require any advertising or any delay except for 2 weeks. Or we can return to it a little bit later tonight and see where we land. So I'm just going to, on this note, call the question on receiving information. Okay, all those in receipt? Anyone opposed to receiving? And no. Okay. So I understand that the consultant and the applicant would like to deliberate. So I'm going to ask you to take your conversation outside, just so we're not having 2 meetings at the same time. Oh, they're done. So that's all the talking that I heard. Would you like to come back forward? Okay. All right. I need to turn the microphone back on though.
Thank you, through the chair. So yes, we would be prepared to advance the improvements to the pathway to the school. In doing so, in terms of looking at the comment that was made in terms of looking at, for example, option 2, it's not like we're saying it's not going to be done. But when the covenant comes back to council, it outlines every phase of development, has a whole shopping list of things that are supposed to occur, or that occur during that phase as a condition of that phase of work. And so I think when I say it's easy enough, but we could reverse it so that in fact we could meet the request from Councillor Beddoes in terms of advancing the road improvements to John Muir Elementary School and make it as part of phase 2. But not to eliminate all the other things that are an important part of the entire development and vision. It's just that just in terms of the timing of that, we would just adjust.
Okay, so when you say phase 2, so I've written down 2 phases here. So phase 2, which means you would start it before it was at the 54th lot,
Yeah,
but
but that's
now
phase 3.
that's phase 3
Yes.
is the 54th lot.
So phase 2 is the very first phase in Aranan West, which is actually the land subject to the zoning and which you're obtaining the amenity for the pathway to the school. So it actually ties into the first phase of Aranan West, which is the area that is subject to the rezoning.
So then it would be after the first lot, like with the first lot.
As part of that, yes.
Okay,
We have Pikeville subdivision is doing its thing. It's in Aranan West, Aranan East. It's not subject to any
No.
zoning. And this would be then subject to the first subdivision in Aranan West, subject to it being rezoned.
So once all that goes, then potentially we may see construction this year then. Like there's some processes that need to be ironed out. but-
No, it would still be, I mean, I got to be clear. Aranan Pikeville subdivision is underway right now. But so that will take a couple of years. So it's likely still at least 2 to 3 years because the first phase in Aranan West, which is first phase or phase 2, that is when that's when I'm suggesting, as opposed to phase 3, which is the 54th lot, it would be actually in phase 2, which would be the start of effectively, if including Pikeville, the 32nd lot.
Okay.
So it advances it entirely by a phase.
Okay, I see.
I hope I'm not too confusing.
Yeah, because you're still finishing the first phase.
Yeah.
So once that is done, which could take another year or so, then
Yeah,
phase 2
which
would
is
kick
not,
off.
which is not subject to the rezoning.
Right,
Correct.
which
yes.
isn't part of the discussion. It's underway right now. So then once the next phase that this is the subject of, which is about 2 years out, begins, then this work would commence.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for that. So we've called the question there. So I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre, who wanted to move an option. Go ahead, please.
Well, it's the option we've mostly been discussing, option F, with adjustments that have just been mentioned, moving it forward 1 phase in terms of when it happens. So, and I think enough has been said about it, if anybody wants to talk further.
No, I want you to read the motion out. Thank
I can
you.
do that too.
That's why I went to you.
All right. The council received the supplemental report dated April 13, 2026, titled 7350 West Coast
We've
Road.
done that one. It's the
Okay.
next one now.
Okay. That prior to adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 935-600-115, 2026, the section 219 covenant for the rezoning be prepared to include provisions securing Highway 14 frontage improvements, generally in accordance with option F, as outlined in this report. F. Is it option G now? Because it's been altered again? F, still F?
No, it is
Sorry.
F.
As outlined in this report. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder? That's seconded by council? Oh, hold on a second. Just a second before we go to a second.
So yeah, just to clarify, option F still had the later time frame for this, for the frontage improvements. So I guess we could say option F with the frontage improvements from Grant Road, or the frontage improvements from Aranan to John Muir being
No,
done
it was
as part of the
to be-
beginning of the second phase.
But my understanding, it was John Muir to
Grant Road.
to be done at the start of the second phase, and the remainder from Grant Road to Aranan Boulevard to follow at that 54th lot phase. So one portion would be done first, and then that other portion would be done at the 54th stage. It'd be broken up into two. So that's what we need the motion to read. I don't know who to look at. I'm just looking at it stuff. I think it may be helpful just to see that all on the screen, just so that we're clear. Okay, over to Miss Nancy. I know, but I thought you had your hand up because you were amending the motion. Okay, I will get to Councillor Pearson in a second, because I think Councillor Haldane had his hand up first. I'll just check with Councillor Haldane that is what you were seconding.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was gonna say we're gonna do the amendment. Same thing.
Well, it doesn't need to be amended because it's being read in, so then this way we can, you
Yeah,
don't have to amendment, you can just second it. That, because that was what Councillor St. Pierre's
Yeah,
intent
as long
was.
as option F includes the changes that we.
absolutely. Yeah, correct. Okay, we're on the same page.
So is that clear that? Go ahead.
Worship, so what we've done there is add up on screen, because the option F wasn't included in your agenda pack. Mr. Riley's come up with wording which is up on your screen there, which essentially lays out what is included within it. I think sure the applicants, the planning staff and council are more familiar than I am with which bits are segment 3 and segment 4 compared to the sections that you were all just describing in terms of where they were from and to. But I just want to make sure that everyone agrees that that is the wording that you are actually looking for in terms of timing and expectations.
It does not include the timing.
It doesn't add that, it does, I think section 3 is.
So yeah, we have new wording though on the trigger for segment 4 to be constructed prior to final approval of the first subdivision lot in phase 2, and segment 3 to be constructed prior to final approval of the first subdivision lot in phase 3. Yes.
Okay, just stay tuned for a second. I'm note your hand, Councillor Pearson. I'll turn to you in just a moment after the mover and second.
You just send that to you.
Microphone.
We're good? Okay, so this is what staff believe they have heard from members of council. That council support the applicant's option F alternate 3 and require that prior to adoption of the rezoning bylaws, section 219 covenant be registered on title to secure the design, timing, and delivery of the Highway 14 improvements, including segment 3, which is the John Muir to Grant Road, with no shoulder, a 1.0 meter boulevard, a 3.0 meter, no?
To whatever the 3 roads interest.
Got you. And segment 4 is in front of the school. Okay, I stand corrected. Segment 3, thank you, is Grant Road to Aranan Boulevard, right? Yes. With no shoulder, a 1.0 meter boulevard, 3.0 meter multi-use path and lighting, and segment 4 is John Muir to Grant Road with a 1.5 meter shoulder, a 2.0 meter boulevard, and a 3.0 multi-use path and lighting, with segment 4 to be constructed prior to final approval of the first subdivision lot in phase 2, and segment 3 to be constructed prior to final approval of the first subdivision lot in phase 3. So one in phase 2, the rest in phase 3. Okay, that's what you're moving, Councillor St. Pierre, and Councillor Haldane, that's
Yes.
what you're seconding? Okay, would you like to speak to it now?
No.
Okay, after all that, Councillor Haldane, go ahead.
I'm just gonna support everything we just talked about in this section, and the fact that I'd love to see the John Muir School component done. So if there's some trade-offs that work here and everybody's happy with this, I'm positive and I'm all for it, so.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre, as the mover does have a comment, go ahead.
I like this alternative a lot. It does provide security for the kids in the school and moves it forward. One of the concerns that came up at the land use committee was also around basically cycling traffic that would be heading, down towards Shirley and parts. I would love to see, I understand at this point that has nothing to do with you, but I would love that staff and everyone keep in mind that it's going to take probably CRD, Ministry of Transportation, us and everyone else to figure out how to get cycling traffic down that way, because it's going to want to come down Grant and so on. And now we won't have that little bit, but I do appreciate the work the developer's doing on making the school safe.
Okay, Councillor Pearson online.
After all that, I have no comment. I was trying to second the motion. I'm in favor of this motion.
Okay, but you're good. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bateman.
So yes, I think this is working out well. Thank you, Councillor Beddoes, for accelerating that stretch. I do have some residual questions, which one of which regards segment 3. Now, I noted in the staff report there was concern around the lack of a horizontal separation along that stretch to Aranan Boulevard. I do note in the applicant's package they talk of a raised and paved multi-use pathway. So my question was, is that raised portion of the multi-use pathway not in fact a kind of horizontal separation on a road, of course, which has no horizontal separations from Maple Avenue South west to I don't know where. There's nothing. But yes, back to that raised multi-use pathway, Mr. Riley.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, the question is simply, does the raised portion of this multi-use path in fact serve as a form of a barrier between the travel lane and the, yes, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, sorry, I think I understand what you're saying, but you can see in the motion there is including segment 3 with no shoulder, but there's a 1 meter boulevard. And sorry, this is because there's so many iterations of this. The applicant's latest iteration did add a 1 meter boulevard. So there is a physical separation between the road and the pedestrians and bicyclists.
Option F. My other question, which I asked earlier, regarded this is the Watt report discussing improve the existing shoulder to the highway standard of 2 meters paved with a solid white line, which we see I see the applicant shaking his head. I'm just curious about that. That was an option at one point in this discussion, clearly, if Watt brought it forward. Anyway.
You'll need to come to the microphone though, so that everyone can hear you. Sorry, Mr. Butler.
To add to your earlier question, there's a curb there, Jeff, too, between the between the path and the pavement. So it's definitely separated.
Microphone, please, so count.
Aaron, and west to the extent of the property? No. Okay.
We're not proposing.
Sorry.
We're not proposing anything to the west.
I'm curious, in the first phase of Aaron, back when you were approved, were you required to do that frontage?
Not at all.
Not at all.
There has been so much at it. We did the first phase, the first rezoning in 3 to 6 months. This has taken 4 years.
Right. Okay. All right. So you weren't required to build the highway standard 2-meter paved shoulder. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So if I'm commenting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of this. I do want, it's such a big project, this. We have to get things right. So I apologize for the nitpicking questions. Yeah, as the applicant stated, it's a practical, usable, safe, and financially realistic proposal. And I think that investment of $750,000 is absolutely on point. And it's a welcome addition to the community. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this motion, as you probably figured out, but yeah, and I'm glad this dialogue came up and cleared up some confusion, and we're able to move ahead and the kids get some good roads, so that's good.
Okay, anything from anyone else? I'm like, no, I also want to acknowledge the work of the land use committee. They worked their way through the earlier parts of this, with the motion that we had passed previously and left this one for us. I can appreciate that the policies that we have would suggest an alternative, but this does take us to the far end of our municipality. And beyond that, the road narrows, it's outside of our jurisdiction, and it leads largely to a very rural parts out west. So I do find this to be something that works. As I said earlier, while there may not be a lot of kids living here, there's certainly a lot of people driving. And the speed does pick up as you head westward along the highway, because either coming into Sooke or heading out that way. So this is a way to keep and hopefully attract more users over there. So I appreciate where we're at and will add my support to this. So thank you, everyone. I know that there's been a lot of back and forth over the years. So this is a significant milestone that the developer has reached this evening, and our staff have done considerable work as well to get us to this point. So on that note, I will call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. There's a few more parts to this one. So that was the zoning. This is the covenant. This is the covenant now, right? Okay, there's another option in here, but I think we like this one.
That's related to the parks.
Oh, that's
Mayor Tate, right? There was a couple parks related motions in there that will seek council support to pass because they weren't passed with the consent agenda. So that one's related to parks.
Okay, so this one here then is that prior to adoption of the bylaws, section 219 covenant be registered on title to secure the phased delivery of statutory parkland dedication and open space, trail and park amenities, infrastructure works, including emergency egress or access and Highway 14 frontage improvements, and affordable housing contributions generally in accordance with the phased development framework and staff directors of option 1.1, park dedication timing, option B, flexibility and dedicated parkland allocation set out in attachment 10. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Haldane. Any comments, Councillor? The other councillor? Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. The second part then. That's this part. And that prior to adoption of the bylaw. Is this not the same? They're different, okay.
Your worship, they are different, yeah.
Okay, a section 219 covenant be registered on title to secure the phased delivery of statutory parkland dedication and open space. Trail and park amenities, infrastructure works, including emergency access and Highway 14 frontage improvements and affordable housing contributions generally in accordance with the phased development framework and staff directions of option 1.2, parkland dedication flexibility option B, allow for flexibility in the amount of dedicated parkland per phase set out in attachment 10. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Haldane. Any questions about that? They are different. I thought they were the same. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And then one more. And that prior to adoption of the bylaw, a section 29.
I apologize, Your Worship. The last one is now the section at the bottom of the supplemental report, the directing any required development variance permit and draft 209.
There we go. Okay, sorry, I was looking at the screen. And that council directs staff to bring forward any required development variance permit and draft section 219 covenant for council's consideration prior to bylaw adoption consistent with council's direction. Right? That's in your agenda. It's the last part of this because we just did the frontage. So is anyone prepared to move that? Okay, Councillor St. Pierre is moving it. Councillor Haldane is seconding. Good? Questions? No? All in favor? And that too is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so that is done for Aranan development. Okay. Okay, there's been a request for a bio break, which sounds good. It's 7:52. So we will reconvene in about 10 minutes at about 8:02. Thank you.
Hi, Nancy.
Financial plan is headed. And as it stands, it feels more like an ideal version of what we'd like to do rather than what's actually achievable. And I'm not convinced it lines up with what's sustainable for Sooke residents, mostly because of affordability, of course. And at the end of the day, the financial plan has to reflect what people can realistically afford. And I think we're missing that mark. This five-year plan isn't in stone. So in future, over the next 5 years, future councils will be able to maybe make some changes that might make more sense for me anyway. So I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers? Councillor Bateman?
Unless Councillor Pearson would like to jump in, I'm sure he's online poised for comment. I'm going to stick with my vote in favor of this budget. We have spent a lot of time working through the darn, I had some comments here. I can find them. Yeah, we have we've listened and we've weighed a lot of options. Staff started with a range of 10 to 18%. In the first pass with this, we've got it now down to 10.5. As I've said before, police, fire, asset management, and union contract increases for QP and the IAFF. We have made it, we've retained our commitment to 24/7 police and fire, which we made in 2023. We're slowly but surely moving to the complete 19 and 20 respectively for police and fire staffing. We did not lose any percentage from the asset management fund. As I said last time, Blythewood, Dufour, and Goodmere at Brownsea are all things that have happened in the last 3 months. We need a reserve to handle those issues. What I'm particularly pleased about is we have retained continuing support for our community nonprofits, the community service agreements with the Sooke Food Bank, Sooke Chamber of Commerce, Sooke Region Communities Health Network. I'm going to cite them all because it's important to note this. Sooke Community Association with the Community Hall, Sooke Region Tourism Association, the Visitor Information Center at the museum, the Sooke Lions Club. We've also renewed lapsed agreements, service agreements with Wild Wise Society, Need to Suicide Prevention, Amber Academy, Harmony Project Sooke, Sooke Family Resource Society, and its prenatal and youth navigator services. So I think this is a budget that has a heart. for the community at large, yes, people are going to, some people, it's always important. There's a spectrum of people in this community. Some are comfortably well off and some are on the edge. And those who are particularly on the edge do have the option of the property tax deferment program. They do. Age 55 or older, a surviving spouse or a person with disabilities, families with children program allows homeowners with children under age 19 to, and I know changes have happened in the 2026 budget, Ms. Pemberton, as you nod your head. And yes, there's a different system today, but that remains an option. If you are unable to pay your taxes, you do have this get out of, should I say jail? No, I won't.
Good choice.
Not a good choice. Anyway, I know it hurts some, but at the same time, it's a mature, responsible budget, I believe, that reflects our growing community. And yeah, so I'll vote in favor. Mr. Pearson.
Okay, Councillor Pearson is next. Go ahead, please.
Thanks for the intro, Jeff. I know that the district has to operate and there has to be a budget in place. I look at the 5-year plan and many parts of it, as Councillor Haldane say, are aspirational. Those are numbers on the wall. We're kicking this down the road to a new council. Hopefully they can look at the year over year fiscal responsibilities. I still I'm strongly opposed to 10.5% because I don't think that we got a great look at things. And I know we debated and again, democracy outvotes me. There's things in our budget that we didn't address. You know, office furniture, travel, expenses, climate change, all of those things that I think are really nice to do, not have to do. And I have to look at the 5-year budget with skepticism, looking at those huge numbers at 52%. And it just means that future councils, and we know the councils are changing, are going to have to sharpen their pencils. They're going to have to do something. The current trend that we're on, 21 to 24 at 43% and a projected now 52%. Well, you're looking at over 100% increase from 2020 to 2030. That's not sustainable and it's not fair for the taxpayers. We have to figure out a way as council members to lower the tax burden. Again, it's not on us right now because we've got 6 months left in this term and 10.5. Again, I'm saying the same thing again, and I've got 2 or 3 minutes to talk here. It's atrocious. 10.5 on top of 15.39 last year. That's 25% in a little over 12 months that people are going to be paying more. I can't take it without us tightening our belt. No, it sounds like I'm preaching and I'm standing up here saying it, but there was more we could do and we should have done it. I will be supporting the 5-year financial plan because the district has to operate. And I know that. I don't like an aspirational plan, but I also know it's not carved in stone. So I think I've said my piece on the 10.5 and we didn't do enough. Anyways, that's it from me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMahon.
I do see both sides and as they say, like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. One of the challenges though that I also have with the 5-year budget plan is I do, especially with our new OCP, see these, as we've had downloads from the province, these unexpected costs that are going to come. And so some of those pieces that I see coming through the OCP are staffing, although we've said we won't hire anymore for this year. It's going to be inevitable. And then we recently have a homicide. Here's another unexpected expense. So how long do we go down this path of using those pieces to justify this percentage of increase? So it's such a challenging time right now. And so I won't be supporting this 5-year financial plan. I do think we could have trimmed in other places, and that falls to all of us. And I think we had a bit of a different process this year. And I do think we should have, some people call it Scrooge McDuck. But I do think going line by line and piece by piece as a group would have been the better route. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So in terms of where we're at, we are looking at a 10.5% tax increase. So based on the average home, it's about $210.48. The main way that this breaks up is 3.04% for fire, which is the addition of 2 career firefighters and to maintain emergency response capacity. 2.6% for 2 additional RCMP officers and 1 to be a school liaison service. 2% towards asset management, which is our capital infrastructure, roads, bridges, culverts, sinkholes, and the like. Your general municipal is 1.81%. That is the ongoing cost to run all of our municipal services. That includes parks, roads, bylaw services, other legislative requirements, hosting of meetings, open houses, development, as we have meetings and so forth. 0.97% is for Ecom 911. That's a bit of an overage that came forward to us from the province. 0.08% for debt servicing. Council had made the decision to provide 24/7 emergency services to our community a few years ago, a service that I feel is necessary and one that needs to continue to be sustained. It's very unfortunate timing due to tragic events that impact our community. We don't know when these events happen. They just do. Nothing is ever planned. They're purely accidental. And I, for one, having needed to call either of those services in the past, have been grateful that my call was taken in a kind and responsive manner. And that secondly, the services arrived at my household or that of my parents in a very short period of time. We don't know what's coming our way, but it helps to be prepared for these items. I also am aware that any events have a serious impact on our first responders and the work that they do. They also have families. They also volunteer and dedicate time in their community. They know many of the members that they are responding to, and there's an impact to them as well, which is why the sustaining these services and beyond is also incredibly important. In terms of what council could have done to make any change, you could have reduced the services that you wish to provide. But at no point did I hear a member of council wish to do that. In terms of trimming away, you could trim away at our general municipal fund, which is all of 1.81%. But we already trimmed back the start of another police officer, which our base commander is also many times presented, was also desperately needed. In terms of services that we have, just to respond to members of our community that spoke earlier, we do not get reimbursed by the province for attending to medical calls. That is a service that we provide. We still have just 4 ambulance responding as we had when we incorporated. We've advocated to have more services provided out this way. We have not received an increase to those services. We are aware that when those cars get pulled, they get pulled out of our community to service the demands that are elsewhere within the core, which is why I'm grateful that we are responding to medical calls in the interim until an ambulance car can return back to us. So that is a reality. We are not reimbursed for that service. I think there are other local governments that are keeping track and potentially invoicing the province for those services. I'm not sure if anyone has been successful in receiving payment back. Certainly would have heard something. In terms of a serious incident where the Vancouver Island Major Crime Unit comes out, that is not a program we pay into. That is not something that the province is accepting. It's closed. So in the event of these investigations, we pay for them as they happen. And there's certain criteria that triggers when an invoice is sent our way. In the event that we were to be invoiced for such, we do have reserves in place, particular to the RCMP, that potentially may help to offset that. Just the same as when our share of what we pay for increased as our population increases, there was revenue smoothing that came out. That was all funds that we know about, that we put surplus into every year, that we prepare for because we know about them. Where we were not known was the cost of the 911 and the burden that that has placed on us. But that is where we join with other municipalities, particularly the 10 South Island ones, to advocate for another funding stream, mainly through the mobile phone. Majority of calls come through the cell phone, not through a landline anymore. And although we receive a portion of landline revenue, many of those services are being discontinued. That's just the natural progression of movement from a landline to a cell phone. Some still have both. If you have one at home, I think you pay around 76 cents a month on your landline bill. Like that's what I looked at, but it's declining because everyone's moving to cell phones. So I'll leave it at that. Next council, when they onboard, may decide to cut a particular service. Maybe they wish to enhance one as we did by adding in the school liaison officer to start this year, or an additional RCMP officer. And they'll have that opportunity to meet with our base commander and to do so. In terms of travel, that naturally works its way out. Not everyone is available or wants to or able to attend everything every year. But again, even if you eliminated that, it's, I don't know that it would make a material difference, given that general municipal operations is only 1.81% of the entire overall budget of that 10.5. So I'll leave it at that and I'll call a question. All those in favor? And opposed are Councillor Haldane, McMath, and I don't know where Pearson sits on this. I'm assuming he's in favor because he's not stating otherwise. So that passes on a 5-2. Next up is 9.3, our property tax rate bylaw, and that is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as property tax rate bylaw number 941, 2026. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. There is a report. It's pretty straightforward. Any questions from anyone? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed is Councillor Haldane and McMath. Not hearing from Councillor Pearson, so that, oh, he's opposed. Okay, so that is still carries on a 4-3. Thank you. No new business that I'm aware of, but I recall there is 2 notice of motions. So we'll start with number 1 from Councillor Bateman. If you could please read yours in. So procedurally, for those watching, these are items. This is how councillors can get their items to the agenda. They are read into the record tonight to be debated or considered at the next regular meeting. So Councillor Bateman, please read it in.
Okay, so whereas 82.9% of District of Sooke voters on November 15th, 2014 were in favor of developing local multi-use community center facilities serving seniors and youth. And whereas the district and the Sooke Region Communities Health Network have worked extensively on plans to establish the Sooke Gathering Place multi-generational center on Lot A in the town center. And whereas the community has responded strongly to multiple fundraising efforts in recent years that have raised $293,979 to date towards construction of the Sooke Gathering Place. And whereas this funding falls substantially short of the TBD amount that will be required. Next page. I'll carry, Therefore, be it resolved that the District of Sooke provide voters with an opportunity to respond to the following question in October 2026. In your opinion, should the district borrow up to $5 million to construct and operationalize the Sooke Gathering Place Intergenerational Center on Lot A in the town center? Yes or no?
Okay, so
And
that
further, sorry, you know, it's one of mine, so they're going to go on forever, not that much longer. And further, that council direct staff to report on the Sooke Gathering Place Intergenerational Center on Lot A in the town center, including the steps required for inclusion of this question on the October ballot and the taxpayer implications based on current municipal finance authority rates.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman. That has been read in, and we will deliberate on that at the next regular scheduled meeting. Councillor Haldane, I understand you have your notice of motion. If you would like to read that in, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm not as clear and concise as the rest of the council in their motions. So I wrote this one night. If we're making changes to bylaw 600,
Okay, you can't motivate, you just need to read it in.
okay. If we're making changes to bylaw 600 zoning bylaw, then I would like, oh, you're gonna give me one? The council instructs staff to bring forward a report on floor area limits on detached suites in zoning bylaw 600, including potential amendments to the zoning bylaw to remove or increase the current limit. I'd just like to remove it, so if they could take that out of there. Because the BC building code.
Okay,
I
so,
know I'm motivating, but
no, like, what is it that you want removed?
I would like there to be no minimum requirement for a detached suite, so. For the reason that if people want to move into the detached suite, it can be 1,100 square feet, not 968, which is the requirement in Sooke zoning bylaw.
So
To read is to remove the current limit, period.
Yes, to follow the BC building code standard for size.
okay, so then to have it to remove
Remove the limit.
the current limit, like, can that,
We can read the same, the potential amendments to the zoning bylaw to remove the current limit of 90 square meters and to match with the BC building code standards of today.
okay,
Which is any size.
current limit to match the the current BC building code.
Yeah.
Okay, if we can just have that all, then that way we just know that it's correct. We just need that other part edited. It's coming.
Do I have to do something else?
I just want to make, they're just adjusting this, so then I just need you to verify that that's what you want to remove.
So
To,
from the, remove the current.
Yeah,
there.
or current limit of 90 square meters, because it can be smaller or larger. You could
Okay,
build
so
it-
that's what you're, that's
Yep.
what you're looking for. Okay, that's fine.
So do you need to, so above, but also and to match with the BC?
Oh, sorry, and to remove the current limit of 90 square meters and to match and align, perhaps, align with the BC building
Yeah,
code standards
That would work.
and align. And to align with the BC building code standard. Okay,
I'll phone Councillor Bateman next time to help me with that.
okay. Probably a good idea. Okay, so that's read into the record.
And as Councillor McMath said, there's two ofs in that second last line.
Limit of.
Oh, yeah, limit of, there we go, 90 square meters. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
that's read in as well, and that'll come to the next scheduled meeting. Okay. Now we're moving on to item 13. Which has 7.5. Oh, sorry, no, we have item 12.1 first. Sorry, which was just an item that I wanted to highlight here for your information. At the December 10th Regional Board meeting, we received a delegation from the Honorable Christine Boyle, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, around homelessness. And as such, they are working with the Capital District looking for suitable sites. At that time, the question that I raised was that we are looking for expansion to Air Manor, particularly for those on the wait list to access complex care, which is increasing every day. It's up to 3 years now. But this just here is again to where the concerns were some have raised. We don't have a lot of services to offer here in Sooke, and many of our services are provided by volunteers. And so expanding a service that we cannot currently deliver is a tall ask for us to deliver. To meet, we can't meet the province's ask in this, but I just wanted to highlight this letter. Councillor Haldane. So I'll just put forward, sorry, to receive this for information by Councillor Bateman and St. Pierre, but go ahead, Councillor Haldane.
Yeah, just the comments I wanted to make, and I'm absolutely all for increasing the size of Air Manor. I think the seniors components of our affordable housing here have been missed, and all the other stuff is going towards, fringe people, and I understand that, but that comes at a huge cost to us. I mean, if we had more stuff going on for the people who put in 30 and 40 years of working capability and then take care of them, I would appreciate that a lot more than the CRD downloading a lot of this other housing on us at our cost. Because I was looking up, and I was going to bring it up during the budget part, but I thought, well, I didn't want to take on too much of that. But the $217,000 that we give permissive tax exemptions to Drennan and Charters and Hope Center and so on, that's $190 per household per year that we're taking up in taxes because we're giving that away. If we talk about downloads from the province, if we didn't allow that and we had said no to that, the province would have had to make up that shortfall. They would have had to pay us that tax money. But that means then all of a sudden the amortization is over the whole province. So instead of just Sooke people paying, because Sooke people are paying $190 on top of their tax every year to be able to house all these people. If we'd have said no to it, then the province would be doing it. Now it would be provincially, everybody, what would that work out to? Maybe a couple of $5 or $10 per household, amortize over the whole province. So I don't agree with the permissive tax exemptions for that type of supportive housing, because I think everybody needs to pay for it, not just Sooke people need to pay for it. And I was going to bring that up during the budget part, but.
Yeah, I'll just respond though, that is being phased out.
Yeah, and I totally
So
appreciate that.
it is, because they do need to adjust, and we do have, and those providers are doing that and they are aware of it. So it is being phased out, but this is another ask for a service that we don't have the resources to
And
provide.
it doesn't come with a package full of amenities for us. This should come with gifts. They should say, we're willing to pay this much of your tax base share. And Sooke's always going to be the one approach for this type of housing because we have the cheapest land in the CRD. So in the end, Sooke people end up footing the bill for what's either a capital region issue or a provincial issue. And that's where we need to come to terms with some of the tax bill that is being covered by people in our town. But again, I think if we were putting this towards senior housing, I get it. They put in 30 and 40 years of work and they pay all their taxes and they do all the stuff right. And there should be something at the end for the seniors over just regular housing.
Well, and
we're
that
not
is,
doing enough.
that is what we have defined through our housing needs reports year over year, supporting seniors is the supportive housing that we need. Air Manor is a logical fit, given that they're at this point, they're not even renewing their development permit. We've renewed it so many times that they are required, they do need the operational funding from the province to be able to expand. And that's where we have wait lists of 3 years. So.
Yeah.
Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something for Councillor Haldane, which was, it might have been misunderstood. When the Drennan Center came forward, first of all, there was 271,000 in taxes that were due on that, and they got the exemption. And then council looked at it and said, that's not good enough. They have to pay for fire or police and everything else too. But then the province turned around and redid their assessment. So all we would get out of that would be $90,000. So they already cut it down from 271 to 90. And so now we're phasing in that 90,000, but that doesn't even come to paying for the services those units use. So again, you can thank the province for coming through and sticking it to us to pick up the slack. And we looked at it very, very deeply, and that's why our financial person came up with this plan to phase it out, but we are. So
Yeah,
just,
thank you
just a
for that.
clarification that
Yeah, they did do.
we did it and then they screwed us. So
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. You covered a lot of ground there. The permissive tax exemption, as we see in the budget open house report, for 2026, the historically applied exemptions, now that we're phasing them out, we've saved approximately 286,000 in retained revenue from that decision last on September 8th, 2025, as it says here. So I think a couple of points here. you mentioned fringe people. I always get a little wary when I hear an expression like that. If you're referring to the tenants at the McCullough housing projects, there are 245 units. I don't know how many people in total. There may be some troubled people within that context, in that mix, but I think that there are not many. And so I think we have to be careful of how we stigmatize and characterize people living in supportive housing. This request from the CRD talks about, and we've talked about this at the Sooke Homelessness Coalition, this very report. It talks about seeking, trying to decentralize, and this was something that came up at UBCM last year. One of the executive resolutions was that regions have to look regionally at the homeless problem. And boy, I'm losing it here. What was my point? Yeah, so that's supportive housing. We have our Sooke shelter. There is a gap in the regional picture from Sooke to downtown Victoria. There's no shelters. So Langford, Colwood need to step up and fill in those regional gaps. The key point around supportive housing, such as the McCullough projects, the Greater Victoria, what are they called here? Sorry, gang. Yeah, the Greater Victoria Housing Association. It attends our Sooke Homelessness Coalition meetings. They have taken over the operations of what was once known as Talc Place, which has 15 duplexes over 6 acres. That's 30 units in total. They have property there where they might potentially expand. So if we are sending back any recommendations to the CRD, that one might be cited. It's now known as Sooke Place. And I believe the association is interested in expanding in Sooke.
But I would just add, though, that the McCullough projects aren't necessarily supportive. They are
a mix. Yes, you're right.
They are the case where it's housing from market all the way to subsidized. In terms of supportive, it's where there are health and mental health and other types of services provided to address the needs of the tenants. But in this case, all of these folks live independently. There's just a range of units from families to individuals, and they live independently within those units. So none of those, Sooke does not have any supportive housing other than what may be provided at Hummingbird Place. So subsidized would be what is in place at others. We talked a bit about the impact and what's changed with permissive taxes, but otherwise there are individuals and families that go about their daily business, and there's a range of rentals to accommodate those particular uses. Supportive housing that we do have would be potentially complex care at Air Manor, of which we have a 3-year wait list for. Councillor St. Pierre. Worsening.
I just wanted to comment that when deliberations were happening over those 2 projects, we carefully asked, is this mostly going to be for people that are in Sooke and that need it, people that need affordable housing in Sooke? And the answer was yes. It was going to be targeting people in Sooke that need affordable housing. And everybody knows that the price of rent, the price of housing has just been going up like crazy. A lot of people are just a tiny bit away from basically landing on the streets. But once they do, if they land on the streets, our policing costs go up, everything goes up, and it's a tragedy because sometimes it's entire families on the street. These projects have had nothing's perfect. But I would say that on the balance, Sooke as a whole is saving money and preventing a lot of tragedy by making sure that we actually have affordable housing or some affordable housing. And that is just another way of looking at it. If we don't have it, we need more police. And we need more emergency services to pick people up off the roads. And honestly, people don't want to be homeless. When I worked as an employment counsel downtown East Side, the first thing you had to do was get housing. Otherwise, you couldn't get a job. almost anyone could be a taxpayer and work a good job if they have housing. And if they don't have housing, then they're basically a burden on the taxpayer. So it's just critically important. And I wish the province hadn't pulled a fast one, but.
Okay. So on that, I will call the question. It's just to receive for information. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next item is our items that have been pulled off the consent agenda. So that is 7.6, the density bonusing. Nope. Sorry, am I reading the wrong thing? 7.5 is the zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments is what was pulled. Yes, that's the one I circled. In this case, we did hear from I'll ask staff this question. Just early on, we did have a resident speak on this particular matter. And it's regarding to lands in the LR and to harmonize the changes. So could staff potentially provide an answer? And the timing as well, and when will this all happen? So maybe could staff please provide some comment back about that particular question and the timing of events?
Yes, thank you. So we did go to the LUDC and received direct from council shortly thereafter this month or last month to proceed with some amendments to the zoning bylaw to basically reinstate the additional residents in the ALR. So that is what we are doing. When I spoke to the gentleman who spoke during the question and comment period or just communicated by email, I noted that we would be moving these forward in advance of October at least at the latest. So I didn't want to overpromise a date necessarily, but these things obviously require some consideration internally by staff about how they function within the new SMU, small scale multi-unit housing framework, where we have some new restrictions that have been added to zones just to be consistent with some of the zones that don't necessarily are ineligible for or not required to have the 3 to 4 units per parcel that are otherwise serviced. So we would need to consider these amendments in more detail, then bring them forward to LUDC, then LUDC to council for first and second reading, and then schedule a public hearing. Anyway, there are a lot of steps involved with the adoption. So I do envision this coming well before October. But again, just moving these things along, I did not want to overpromise a date when it comes to expediting this, but we will do our best to move things forward as fast as possible. We also have quite a few other zoning bylaw amendments that we're working with too. So just from a staff capacity perspective and prioritization, we'll likely, because this would require a public hearing as well, so we would likely try and consolidate a few other zoning bylaw amendments just to reduce costs as well with notification and setting up that meeting with the other bylaw amendments that require a public hearing.
Okay, my understanding is the Land Use and Development Committee term is only until June. So I could be wrong on that time-wise, but council then meets in July, and then September, October, we only have a few meetings scheduled because the nomination period opens. So, okay. So anyway, it's moving as it can. I'm just going to put the motion on the floor and then I'll turn to members of council. So it'll be that council directs staff to prepare amendments to zoning bylaw number 600 to reinstate provisions recognizing an additional residence on parcels located within the agricultural land reserve in the RU1 and RU3 zones in accordance with the Agricultural Land Commission Act and Agricultural Land Reserve Use Regulation, and 2, remove sections 3.24 steep slope setbacks from zoning bylaw number 600. Okay, so that's moved by Councillor McMath. I'm going to you because you pulled it, and seconded by Councillor Haldane. So did you have a question or a comment? Go ahead.
So maybe just for context, how was it pulled originally?
Sorry, I suppose through the chair, you mean how was it unintentionally removed?
Correct.
From the zoning bylaw, yeah. So during the SMU amendments, small scale multi-unit housing amendments, we were directed to limit the number of units permit 2 dwelling units per parcel that didn't meet the SMU criteria. So those that were unserviced or outside the growth boundary. So it was affecting these rural zones such as RU1 and RU3. So there was a use in the accessory uses that stated additional dwelling in accordance with the ALC regulations. That was removed unintentionally by our consultant. It was not caught by staff when that went forward. And it was just because it was basically making changes consistent with all those zones that did also have some additional language saying a maximum 2 dwellings restricted per parcel, 1 principal building, and something you see throughout the zoning bylaw amendments that we made at the end of or at the beginning of 2025.
Okay, so I can see how it's happened. But for me, I'd rather make this a priority because it's we're having these unintended consequences from this accidental, easy to understand how it happened. But for me, I'd like to triage it and put it right up to the front. So is that feasible? And what does that look like?
Yeah, we can certainly move this to the very front if that's the direction from council.
And what are the impacts if you move that to the front of the line? What falls?
It would just require reprioritizing some other items, such as our short-term rental modernization, as well as agritourism accommodation uses that we're looking at for zoning bylaw amendments, which both require public hearings. This one is a lot less substantive.
Because it's just a reinstatement, right?
It's a little bit more than that because of some of the other regulations that have been put in place. So there'd be I believe a condition of use to the zones and probably some perhaps a definition. So I don't know 100% where we're landing yet with these changes, but it could be done relatively quick, but it would just require us to delay some other things.
Okay. I don't know how everyone else is feeling, but like I'm comfortable with that. So we've made a bit of an error, easy to see how that's happened. And so I think would be beholden for us to push it back up. So I'm not sure if I need to amend the current motion that's on the floor. It's a friendly amendment.
Well, no, I mean, it's up to you to amend as you please. You have the floor. You could go ahead and do that now.
Then let's see where I would put this.
You could just add something. Or you could amend it in directs where it says at the start that council directs staff to prepare amendments, council directs staff to prioritize.
The reinstatement.
Yeah, you could add something like that.
Is that enough?
Sorry, can I just make a comment here? Just regarding timelines, I think it will take us probably a week or so. I'm just thinking about the scheduling of the LUDC agenda, which happens at the first Tuesday of each month. So if we miss this next Tuesday, it was planning to land on the June agenda anyway. So again, that would just be our timeline for this. So yeah, if there's urgency around this matter, then we could drop other things to make sure it was expedited for the May agenda. I suppose that would be possible, but anyway, the plan was to bring it on the June agenda LUDC.
Yeah, and just again for clarity, what is it that you're dropping?
We have a range of long-range items that have been presented to the LUDC over the last couple of months.
And there's no way just to have this as an additional item?
As an additional item?
Yeah. Like, I mean, for your workload, you're saying you're having to drop these projects or these pieces.
It's just reprioritization.
Okay.
Okay, so as it stands right now, it would come forward in June and then it would advance to the July meeting and then we would schedule a public hearing. So it would still be ahead of October and we're halfway through April now. So it would come forward in June or July. It's up to, I mean, there's other things that are in the land use meeting that were also before council asking to move, but I'll go to the chair of that particular committee.
Thank you, sir. As it happens, the land use committee and a lot of the motions that were brought forward had to do with actually helping people in very similar ways to that gentleman. It would be preferable to actually move them all forward at the same time And I think that at this point, staff knows that this wants to be prioritized, but it would all, like, for example, specifically the on-farm ALR regulations around housing, that strongly affects some people that have brought it forward. There was a presentation at the last Sooke regional system from Josh from Woodside Farm. They're looking forward to this happening so that they can actually make their operation sustainable and work with the entire community on this stuff. All the stuff that was brought forward that would be essentially bumped along is going to affect people in very much the same way as the gentleman that was speaking. I would prefer, if at all possible, that in order to keep the taxes lower, we don't actually have 2 public hearings and we just keep it tight. And make everybody happy, or at least equally unhappy.
Well, are those other pieces reinstatement pieces or are they new pieces?
Okay, so now if Councillor McMath, if you would like to move your amendment, now would be the time, and then we could see, we've heard from staff that it would, the impact of that, so this would be your time to test an amendment.
Yeah, is it coming onto the screen?
We just have to get the amendment on and then we can second it and see where it goes. Okay, so the amendment is that council directs staff to prioritize bringing forward these amendments. Is that? To the May land use meeting, right? Wait till it's on the floor, then I'll entertain it. Yeah. Councillor McMath is moving this. Once it's on the floor, then I'll call for a seconder. Okay. I think she just may want the date of to zoning to the May land use meeting. LUDC committee meeting. Okay, that's your motion. That's moved by Councillor McMath. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Haldane is seconding it. So on the amendment, go ahead, please, Councillor McMath.
I think I've said most of my piece. It was an error by us, so it should be course correction by us as quickly as possible.
Okay, Councillor Haldane.
Yeah, but the only thing I don't understand is if we do make mistakes, why does it have this long drawn out process going through even land use? Why wouldn't we just bring it forward to council, vote on it and get it passed and reinstated through the chair?
Because that's where we have delegated and formed that committee to go through that particular process. Otherwise, it brings the argument, why have a committee? Councillor St. Pierre is the chair.
I agree with Councillor Haldane. In this particular case, this item has already come before the committee. Committee already has agreed with staff recommendation to put it back in place the way it was. There's no reason to send it through land use again. It's just rubber stamping for the sake of rubber stamping. I would prefer that if we want to speed this up in a way that doesn't cost us, we could just have it come directly to council.
Okay, so then you can amend me the amendment.
Just.
Because that's what I heard was the May Land Use and Development Committee.
I know, that's why I was trying to.
Well, I just one speaker at a time. So amend the amendment. You know the process?
Yep, Councillor, accept to the next available regular council meeting.
So when would that be?
Don't know, but I don't know if it needs to be specific. It should be the next one that is possible.
Okay, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to alert Council that as a amendment to the zoning bylaw, we will be required to post statutory notice on this. So if we're going to be picking a specific date, we'll want to confirm with calendars just to make sure that we know the exact dates that we can make, having hit the notice requirements under Section 94 of the Community Charter.
Okay. So I would need staff to reply back as to what date that is.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be advertised, so it can't be the next scheduled council meeting.
Yeah. Let's get on with it.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Oh, apologies, Your
Thank you,
Worship.
Sam.
Yes, we believe that May 11th is the next possible council meeting to bring this to.
Okay, so then why don't you amend your motion? You can make the amendment, Councillor St. Pierre, to strike out Land Use and Development Committee and replace it with 11th regular council meeting. That's your amendment to your amendment, okay? So is there a seconder for that amendment to the amendment? Is that Pearson? Okay. So I'll call the question on the amendment to the amendment. All those in favor? That's unanimous. So now on the amended amendment. I'll call the question on that, please. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. So on the amended motion, which would be all of this, including the steep slopes. Because it's all together, I think in the end, we just want to have one public hearing on this, one set of advertising on this, rather than two. So on the amended motion as it is, all those in favor? Oh, Councillor Pearson wants to speak.
No, I don't.
He doesn't want to speak. Okay,
No, I'm
we're never
voting.
sure.
I'm
You're just voting. Okay.
I want to bring something up in a little while. I need you to get a hold of me, so.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, we'll move on. Council reports.
Your Worship, if I may.
Yes?
Just before you move on to another item, there's an issue on that I need a procedural ruling from the chair, please.
A procedural ruling, really?
Yes, please. Under item 9.2, bylaw 940, as you're aware, under the Community Charter section 123, all members are required to vote on matters, and anyone who does not indicate how they vote is required to be recorded as voting in the affirmative. And under our procedure bylaw section 30, you are required to announce the results of the vote, and I am required to record in the minutes the results as you recorded them. Councillor Pearson has now emailed to note that he intended to vote against the bylaw adoption of bylaw 940. So I need your ruling on whether or not to accept that and to enter that into the minutes instead of the result that you announced at the time the vote was taken.
Interesting. Well, I could rule you out of order. This is what happens when you don't follow the meeting, Councillor Pearson, but
Well-
fine, I am fine that I will put you in opposition to it.
Yeah, and I apologize to the chair, is I'm turning my camera on and off. And then all of a sudden I'm turning the camera on and off, and I heard you say, I thought you said that Pearson was opposed because people were laughing, and I didn't really get it. So then I thought I better go back. I just wanted to clarify because I did vote against it. So I
No,
know
that's fine. I didn't hear anything from you and we didn't see you. So when
I
you,
know, and I'm turning my microphone and my video on and off at each time, right? So and that's my fault for not being there tonight. So I'm sorry, but I'm not technologically challenged. I'm just it's kind of fussy how I turn this on and off each time. So and I do apologize.
that's totally fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council verbal reports. Is there any reports from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
Well, I've had a busy couple of weeks since the council meeting on March 23rd, I think it was, when we last reported out. I attended the CRD Parks and Transportation meetings in the mayor's absence, and I'd just like to share around the transportation meeting was particularly interesting. I don't think I've got anyone's attention here, but maybe I do. The transportation meeting. So the CRD is beginning work on a new regional transportation plan to follow up on the 2014 version. I think the interesting things there are it will include reference to the new Reconciliation Corridor Initiative, which will explore rail connection between West Hills and downtown Victoria along the Island Rail Corridor. And that's a bit of a game changer if you link BC Transit up with that West Hills station. Also discussed a presentation on an electric 12-passenger on-demand fast ferry within harbor areas, Esquimalt Harbor, Sooke Basin, and Victoria Inner Harbor. And this is from a group called Future Marine Incorporated, who our CED officer, Gail Scott's been working with. She's been talking to them about a larger 30-passenger piloted vessel that could link Sooke to Victoria's Inner Harbor in under an hour. So these are those significant things. I was also, and I know a number of you were at the Royop Open House, and I don't know what you have to say about all that, but I'll speak on the subject. It was what I heard among concerns mainly was regarding the exit onto Eustis, which would require some major road upgrades in the area, including perhaps serious consideration of extending Gatewood so that it exits onto Grant Road West. But that's a significant issue for the people who live on what is currently a sleepy secondary road. And I did want to mention that in the original presentation last year, there was a roundabout as an entrance to the mall off the West Coast Road, just west of the Sooke shelter. It's now to be a signalized intersection. And what the applicants told me, there was some confusion over whether or not it was the ministry was insisting on a signalization and had ruled out the roundabout, or whether this was a district staff decision. So I'm not clear on that, but I'm really looking forward to the development permit coming to council. They are a motivated developer, which is, given the current situation, that's something we should, embrace and encourage onwards. Finally, anyway, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Over to Councillor St. Pierre.
I just remembered that I did do something useful. I attended the Sooke Regional Food Systems Network meeting as the council liaison, along with Ms. Moog. And it was an excellent meeting, well attended by our MLA La Jeunesse, Kent Mullinex from KPU. Ms. Lures, of course, is at all meetings. We never miss her. But the important thing, I think, at the end of it is that all these people got together and decided, I believe, that one of the top priorities was going to be developed in consultation with the public, a food charter that could actually guide the vision of food sovereignty for Sooke. And sadly, I missed the last part of the meeting, but a good meeting. Thank you.
Comments from anyone else? So I'll just thank members of council that covered off meetings in my absence. In March was rather busy as I was in St. John's, Newfoundland for part of it, attending an FCM board meeting. So I'll share that the meetings happen in sort of a two-part phase. Committee meetings happen prior, and then the board meeting follows. So at the board meeting itself, a lot of it focused on the vital role municipalities play in Canada's new economic landscape. I'm reading notes here. This includes the vital importance of municipal infrastructure as the economic backbone of our nation and the huge contributions made from a municipal level to Canada's international trade and defense. Municipal priorities across the country remain fully focused on housing, infrastructure, public safety, and climate resilience. Municipalities' capacity to help build a stronger Canada is clear, and supporting local infrastructure means also strengthening our economy for the long term. Throughout the presentations, there was a detailed advocacy strategy session. You'll see more of those of you that subscribe to the FCM newsletters. If you don't already, I suggest you do, because that's where you see where our connection to it is, as well as a session on trade and defense. The big one is Canada's expand Canada's and to hit NATO targets, of which we already know have hit the 2%. There is a focus on buying Canadian procurement and opportunities for dual use municipal defense infrastructure investments. So why is that important? Well, CFB Esquimalt is within our region. Their land stretches all the way out to Metchosin. The other one would be Comox in the airbase. So we are impacted. A large number of our residents work and serve in the military. And when we talk about services that Canada would provide, particularly over the north, it's all within the submarine class. So some of you may have already been following a lot of that, but more to come. I did put my hand up to be on their task force, which talks about defense-related impacts and the dual use infrastructure. Other sessions were on local response to homelessness. The big one that was interesting to me was the work that they're doing around youth and choices for youth within St. John's. The interesting one is where their focus is on providing housing, as well as local employment, local food and the like. After that, when those two needs are met, there's conversation about counseling and so forth, but the focus is always around housing and employment to start. The trade show and conference, as you know, is coming up in Edmonton. I know that many of you, or probably none of you, are attending aside from me. However, if you look at the board of directors in its entirety, of which there are over 150, there are only 2 members of that board that serve on the island, and you're looking at one of them. No one else. And we will be electing our representatives at that particular meeting. Similarly, with the Union of BC Municipalities, I don't know that there is anyone other than the ABICC president currently serving on UBCM proper. But if you ask why federal issues are not being heard, well, if we're not being representative, then they're not going to be at the table. But that's just something that I'll raise there. The cost of my travel is covered through the Community Travel Fund. And no, I did not send any expenses through to the District of Sooke for this. Following that, I was back and then I was on the plane again to visit our sister city or to formalize our agreement with our sister city, now sister city in Natori, Japan. So again, thank you to members of council for covering off that particular meetings. I am putting together a PowerPoint presentation and perhaps I am not tech savvy because it didn't save. So I could have put it all together haphazardly this afternoon, but then it would be rushed. I would not be overly happy with it. So that's why I asked that it be brought to the next meeting. And then I just know that all the points, because I know some of you have asked, how did this all come about? It predates me. This was led by our Journey students. And even after the devastation that occurred in 2011, it was former students who had gone on that student exchange were the ones that led the fundraising efforts here in Sooke locally. And that effort is still recognized in Japan today. I did obviously make a bit of a trip out of it, visiting other places and having a bit of a holiday before I came back. So glad to be home as always. Though I do, as being half Japanese, I can't help but miss being there at the same time. So anyway, for those of you that are thinking about a place to travel, highly encourage you visit Japan, and I can give you lots of tips of places to go to that are off the beaten track and not so busy. So on that note, thank you, Councillor Bateman, for covering off the work. Sea Park has a big grand opening coming up in May for their skate park as that reaches conclusion. And the other day, as I walked through Ravens Ridge, I think it was one of the academy programs from the middle school that were there using both the multi-use gaming area as well as the sport box itself. There was a lot of kids, a lot of enjoyment, and a lot of fun happening. So great to see all of that in use. And thank you to our staff for painting over the graffiti tag that was there. It was bugging me every time I walk by it. And on that note, we'll see you soon, Councillor Pearson. All the best to you and yours, and all the best again to members of the community that have been impacted by recent events. We are certainly thinking of all of you, and this is a very kind community full of compassion, and we are with you. So on that note, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by St. Pierre, seconded by McMath. All in favor? That's unanimous. Take care. Good night.